Chapter 480. Sun Mu and the others were all stunned. When did Han Fei and Xia Xiaochang come out? Why did they come out? Mo Fian's face turned ugly. Damn it. Both of them can disguise themselves. They must have sneaked out in the chaos. Yang Diu immediately raised his two big axes. Son of a bitch, come with me. Let's chop those two bastards to death. Among the crowd, the most dumbfounded were the disciples of the Grand Void Academy. At this moment, Ji Wenxuan and Tian Yishan were surrounded in the middle, and a group of people was yelling at the two guys. Ji Wenxuan, are you an idiot? That's what you get for bragging. I knew that our Grand Void Academy didn't have such a powerful figure. He's so fucking strong. Now, the Grand Void Academy will become a laughingstock this time. Someone suggested, why don't we go there too? Tian Yishan scolded, if you have the ability, why don't you try over there? That's very intimidating. In that case, he kept talking about our Grand Void Academy. What could you do if you were him? Someone curled his lips. I'm sure I can see through him and fight him. Ji Wenxuan scoffed. Fuck you. Do you think you can beat him? Can you withstand the power of Gong Yuehan's sword? He can. Gong Yuehan is no match for him at all. The group of people fell silent. After a while, someone suggested, then should we follow them or not? Tian Yishan said grumpily, follow them? If you think you can withstand the immortals' slaying formation, you can go after them. There was no movement on the side of the Grand Void Academy, nor did the other academies. Although many people had been persecuted by Han Fei, most of them had felt Han Fei's strength. After they left the steps into the sea, the rumors about the black and white ghosts became even more bizarre. They said that he cooked people, defeated Gong Yuehan with 3 slashes, broke into the immortals' slaying formation alone, fought Tang Gu and tied. At this moment, they said that he defeated Chao Tian. No matter which rumor it was horrifying. Who dared to chase them? Especially when Sun Mu proposed that the black and white ghosts were Han Fei and Xia Xiaochang, most people felt that it was nothing to be robbed of a sea-swallowing seashell. Money lost can be earned again. If he lost his life, he would have nothing left. Only Yang Diu, that hothead, went down with a group of subordinates. Li Hai and Li Baizhou also went with him. As for Sun Mu and Mo Fian, they only sent a few of their subordinates to confirm the authenticity of the news. Sun Mu, in particular, only sent 2 people out this time. He was more willing to believe that Han Fei was still in the steps into the sea and that it had something to do with the current vibration of the platform. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just less than an hour after everyone left, the steps into the sea suddenly shook again, and the degree of the shaking was not small, it was stronger than the previous days. At this moment, there were not many people coming out of the steps into the sea. At this moment, Han Fei was standing on the mouth of the spring in the middle of the steps into the sea, wearing a mid-quality battle suit, with long hair and a big hammer in his hand. He looked a little scared. If Xia Xiaochang were here, she would have recognized this person as Han Fei immediately. Because it was simply too fucking obvious. The face Han Fei used was none other than Li Gang's face. And the few of them were probably the only ones who were familiar with Li Gang. It was for this reason that Han Fei used Li Gang's face so that Xia Xiaochang could recognize him. Li Gang's face happened to be a common face. Han Fei was thinner than Li Gang. Even people from the Blue Sea town might not be able to recognize him if they were not familiar with Li Gang. As soon as Han Fei got on the mouth of the spring, someone immediately shouted to him, "Brother, what's going on down there? How many people are there?" Han Fei made up a story. A lot of people ran down there. God knows why the steps into the sea keeps shaking. Someone laughed. Then did you summon a creature? Han Fei's eyes flickered. Yes. I just fought with a big octopus. Well, I got a low-quality spiritual weapon. Han Fei thought that his answer wouldn't be a problem. The summoned creature was neither strong nor weak, and the reward he got was neither good nor bad. It should be very mediocre. However, many people said in surprise, "You actually summoned a creature? Didn't you say that you can't summon creatures now? Can you summon them again?" Han Fei was shocked. What's going on? You can't summon creatures now? Han Fei had an idea and hurriedly said, "It's not that I can't summon creatures. I tried many times and finally summoned an octopus. There was nothing wrong with what he said. When Han Fei landed on the steps into the sea, many people ignored him. Now, more people paid attention to the intermediate dangling fissures coming out of the mouth of the spring. It was said that the black and white ghosts were both intermediate dangling fissures. Therefore, Han Fei, an advanced dangling fissure, was naturally ignored by others. Han Fei walked in the crowd and found that there seemed to be fewer people on the steps into the sea. After a while, someone walked over from outside, shouting as he walked, "Which bastard said that the black and white ghosts came out? I've been chasing them for a long time, but I haven't even seen a shadow." Someone laughed and said, "Aren't you talking nonsense? Didn't they say that the black and white ghosts are Han Fei and Xiaochan? They have divine boats. What do you have?" Han Fei was shocked again. "What? When did they expose themselves?" Han Fei hurriedly pulled the man and said, "Brother, how did the black and white ghosts become Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan?" The man glanced at Han Fei. "Huh, you don't know?" Han Fei looked puzzled. "I don't know. I was robbed by Han Fei. This bastard said to me that he would rob me of my money, not my life. Then he took away my sea-swallowing seashell." The man patted Han Fei on the shoulder sympathetically and said, "Brother, you've suffered a lot. You're not the only one who has been robbed. Now, who hasn't been robbed here? But don't even think about revenge. The disciple of the big clan from the Thousand-Star City said that the black and white ghosts are Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. I heard that the earthquake of the steps into the sea this time is related to them." Han Fei sighed. "Really?" The man clicked his tongue. "Why would I lie to you? Look over there, all the people from the Thousand-Star City are there." Han Fei looked in the direction the man pointed, but there were too many people, and he could only vaguely see an open space over there. Han Fei smiled bitterly and said, "Well, I'm sorry. I hope I don't meet them again. I don't want to be robbed again." Someone laughed and said, "Don't think about it. Now many people have gone to chase them." Han Fei asked, "Isn't the steps into the sea still shaking? Are you sure it's them?" The man's face turned serious. "Of course it's true. Someone said that he saw the black and white ghosts with his own eyes." Han Fei nodded and then turned his head and frowned. "Xia Xiaochan showed up? It must be so. Xia Xiaochan didn't have to show up. Now that she showed up, she must be trying to distract these people, right?" Han Fei passed through the crowd and glanced at the crowd, only to find that there were many teams from the 7 major sections. These people were all gathered in groups. Among them, Sun Mu and Mo Fian were standing together and seemed to be discussing something. Suddenly, Han Fei was taken aback. Isn't the guy being carried next to Li Hani? Why was he caught again? Li Hani was thinking about how to get out of this. "I just came out to gain experience and seek opportunities. Do you think it's easy for me? It's all that damn Han Fei's fault. Why did you pretend to be me? What did I do to you? Didn't I just have a little conflict with you in the fiery mountain? Why are you so narrow-minded? You still hold a grudge against me." Li Hani glanced around in the dark, and suddenly he saw a familiar figure in the crowd. The owner of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant? Although Li Hani didn't get along with Han Fei, he often went to the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant. Especially after the conflict with Han Fei's team, he specially went to study Han Fei and the others. As the saying went, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated." So he naturally knew Li Gang. For a moment, the two of them stared at each other in astonishment. But then, Li Hani felt that his eyes were about to burst into flames. "Fuck, I was fucking controlled here. But after you came out, you deliberately came here to make fun of me? What are you doing? Why are you frozen here?" Seeing Li Hani's stiff body, one of Sun Mu's men slapped him in the face. Sun Mu and Mo Fian were alarmed by this small movement and they both looked over. Han Fei said directly, "If you dare to tell anyone, I will beat you up every time I see you when I return to the Blue Sea Town." After saying this, Han Fei turned around and went into the crowd. When Sun Mu looked over, he could only see a disappearing back. Sun Mu's face suddenly changed. "Attention, everyone, chase after him. Han Fei is out." First, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 481. Previously, there was a rule on the steps into the sea that no one was allowed to kill each other on the steps into the sea. This rule was to prevent the strong from bullying the weak and monopolizing the resources. However, there was actually an element of convention in this. After all, there was no peerless expert overseeing this place. Therefore, when a certain person aroused public anger and robbed thousands of people on the steps into the sea, this rule no longer existed for that person. Sun Mu's reaction was not slow. He immediately sensed Li Hani's abnormality and seemed to be a little angry. What could make Li Hani angry? Of course it was Han Fei. Therefore, when Sun Mu saw the figure disappearing into the crowd, he found it increasingly familiar. If Han Fei hadn't run and pretended to be a passerby, he wouldn't have noticed him. But the point was that the figure left by Han Fei was very familiar to him. Make way, Han Fei, where are you going? Attention, Han Fei has left the steps into the sea. Han Fei was speechless. I just glanced at you in the crowd, and that damn guy found me? One had to know that his current range of perception was very far, so he naturally knew that Li Hani did not betray him. This could only mean that Sun Mu was too shrewd. However, apart from Han Fei, everyone else also had the ability to perceive. Therefore, although Han Fei was leaving, he was still locked on by a group of people. Flying on the platform into the sea? Fighting on the platform into the sea? It was all bullshit. The stronger one was, the bigger the fist was. The people of the 7 sects stood up together. Seeing Sun Mu, Mo Fian, and the others chasing after them, someone immediately shouted, "Everyone, let's join hands to kill the enemy. Fan Datong is the shame of our generation. Kill him." These people had a large perception range, but Han Fei's perception range was even larger. The crowd began to riot. Han Fei even saw some people take out their weapons, and some people began to fuse with their spiritual beasts. In the crowd, someone pointed at Han Fei. It's him. Han Fei had already started running, shouting, Little Neza, Little Neza." Now that he had been exposed, Han Fei couldn't care less about it. He suddenly leaped up and flew into the sky. While a pair of golden red wings spread open. Whoosh! Han Fei flapped his wings and began to fly wildly. The moment he flew out, the place where he had stopped in midair was directly enveloped by colorful and magnificent battle skills. Fuck your mother, Han Fei swallowed. Where did so many people come from to beat me? Who did I offend? Almost at the same time, Sun Mu and the others leaped into the sky. All of a sudden, enormous fishing boats appeared in the sky. Swish, swish, swish. The fishing boats, like serial rocket launchers, broke through the sky in the blink of an eye and chased after them, leaving a white mark in the sky. Han Fei took out the second wind god boat. Compared with the one Han Fei gave Xia Shaochuan, this one was nearly 500 kilometers faster every hour. After all, when he refined the first wind god boat, he didn't have so many spiritual weapon materials. As soon as the wind god boat appeared, Han Fei turned into a red stream of light in the sky. However, not long after Han Fei ran out, he found that another fishing boat that was moving at an extremely fast speed was chasing him from the side. Ghost speed divine boat? Where did it come from? Han Fei robbed Sun Mu and the others of their sea-swallowing seashells, but none of their sea-swallowing seashells had ghost speed divine boats. According to Cao Qiu's temper and his hatred for Sun Mu and the others, he naturally wouldn't give it to them. However, even the ghost speed divine boat was still no match for the wind god boat. In fact, the wind god boat was 15,000 kilometers faster than the ghost speed divine boat. This was the same as the difference between a car with 120 horsepower and a car with 100 horsepower. It was impossible for Han Fei to get rid of the other party immediately. When Han Fei took a closer look, he found a boy he didn't know at all, and the boy was bald. Han Fei was particularly afraid of seeing a bald head. As soon as he saw one, he would think of what he looked like when he was bald. At that time, Xia Shaochuan and the others almost laughed at him. Han Fei said, "Hey, who are you? Do I know you? Why are you chasing me?" The bald man grinned. Chen Aochen of the Chen family in the Thousand Star City. Han Fei was speechless. Did I offend you? The corners of the big bald man's mouth curled up. I heard that you are very strong? There is no other reason. I want to fight you. Han Fei cursed. Are you fucking crazy? Can't you see I'm running away? If you want to fight, next time? I don't have time to fight with you now. Han Fei didn't bother to talk to him. He had long heard of the name Chen Aochen. It was said that among the younger generation of the big clans, he and Chao Tian were fighting geniuses with fists. Chao Qiu had mentioned Chen Aochen more than once. However, didn't this guy go out long ago? Why is he still here in the steps into the sea? Fortunately, Han Fei's wind god boat was too fast. After chasing for a while, Chen Aochen found that he had been left behind. Didn't Chao Qiu say that the Ghost Speed Divine boat was the fastest fishing boat in the level 3 fishery? How could there be a fishing boat faster than the Ghost Speed Divine boat? Seeing that he couldn't catch up with Han Fei, Chen Aochen shouted, "You are running in the wrong direction." However, Han Fei had already run out of the range of his voice transmission and didn't hear anything. Han Fei muttered, "Hey, little guy. Still chasing me? You think too much, don't you?" Just when Han Fei was still triumphant, his face suddenly stiffened and his expression changed abruptly. As he was running, a fishhook appeared in front of him out of nowhere. It directly tied his legs and violently pulled him into the air. Swish! Han Fei immediately put away the fishing boat and took out the blood-drinking knife. Rip! The fishing line was cut, and Han Fei had already flown dozens of kilometers away in the blink of an eye. 1,000-mile fishing technique? A hanging fisher? No, a hanging fisher doesn't have such a long distance. And dozens of kilometers away, on the top of a dragon boat, a hanging fisher exclaimed in surprise. This boy reacted so fast that he cut off his fishing line in an instant. Han Fei spread his wings and immediately rose into the air. However, in Han Fei's perception, the fishing line without the hook was still tied to him. Damn, a dragon boat? High in the sky, Han Fei saw a huge fuzzy figure in the distance. It must be a dragon boat. I actually entered the area of a dragon boat. Immediately, Han Fei turned around and left. However, he immediately saw a black spot chasing him in the distance. It was Chen Aochen who was going to fight with him. Han Fei was stunned for a moment, and the fishing line wrapped around his arm again as if it didn't want to let him go at all. Fuck, a hanging fisher interferes with matters outside the dragon boat? Majestic mystic spell. Bam. Han Fei's body surface exuded terrifying energy, his face flushed, his muscles slightly bulged, and the blood in his body surged constantly. So what if you are a hanging fisher? If you have the ability, then get out here. Han Fei grabbed the fishing line with a backhand and pulled the hanging fisher on the dragon boat with a huge force through the fishing line. At the moment when Han Fei grabbed the fishing line hard, the hanging fisher's face suddenly changed, and his whole body was directly pulled up by Han Fei, almost flying out of the dragon boat. Come back. The hanging fisher roared, and billowing spiritual energy broke out on the top of the dragon boat. On the dragon boat, many people were dumbfounded. What's going on? Did the top of the boat explode? On the other side, when Han Fei saw Chen Aochen coming in the blink of an eye, he sneered. How dare you compete with me in spiritual energy? I'll kill you. Buzz. The hanging fisher only felt that a stream of majestic spiritual energy came from the fishing line, all gathering in one point. What? He can already break through the void? Rumble. On the top of the dragon boat, a large amount of spiritual energy burst out. Many people had noticed at this moment that someone was fighting on the top of the dragon boat. Chen Aochen shouted, Han Fei, come and fight me. Han Fei cursed, damn you. Don't you see I'm fighting now? Chen Aochen grinned hideously. I don't care. If I want to fight, even the hanging fisher has to stand aside. With that, when Han Fei was wrestling with the hanging fisher, Chen Aochen punched at Han Fei. Bam! Han Fei was sent flying backward and swept hundreds of meters in the sky. The sky was not the sea, so Han Fei could only use his wings to offset the impact. After being hit by Chen Aochen's punch, the wrestling between him and the hanging fisher was interrupted, and he was pulled in the direction of the dragon boat. At this moment, the dragon boat was already clearly visible. After all, During the wrestling, the dragon boat didn't stop moving. Besides, it was only a few dozen kilometers away, which could be covered in an instant for both the dragon boat and the fishing boat. From a distance, Han Fei saw the top of the dragon boat and suddenly shouted, "The one on the dragon boat, if you don't kill me today, you'll die." "Uff, don't talk nonsense. Come here." Han Fei's eyes turned cold. Seeing Chen Aochen coming at him again, he no longer reserved his strength and slashed out 100 knives, drawing streams of light in the sky. Han Fei want to go. Who can stop me? Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 482. In the sky, knives flew like locusts, and hundreds of knife lights pierced the sky and went straight to Chen Aochen. Ultra-quality spiritual weapons? So many? Chen Aochen's face changed. He wanted to retreat, but how could he be as fast as the million knife art? Almost in the blink of an eye, he was swept by the knife art. A protective barrier appeared in front of him. Unfortunately, this protective barrier only lasted for less than 2 minutes before it was shattered by the million knife art. Puff! In the blink of an eye, dozens of wounds appeared on Chen Aochen's body. Unfortunately, Chen Aochen had already escaped in the 5 minutes. Otherwise, Han Fei felt that he could even kill him directly. On the other side, the hanging fisher's eyes almost popped out when he saw this scene. Is your family a master of refining? 100 supreme-grade spiritual weapons at once? Han Fei held the embroidery needle in his hand. At this moment, the embroidery needle was enlarged and fell from the sky, aiming at the hanging fisher on the top of the dragon boat. At that moment, the embroidery needle even produced a violent flame in the air. Han Fei sneered. "I'll remember you. Don't let me go. Otherwise, when I come back, I'll beat you up." On the dragon boat, countless people looked up, and many great fishing masters were horrified just by looking at it. Even peak-level dangling fishers didn't dare to come out at this moment. This was too fucking fierce. Who was Han Fei talking to? Someone exclaimed, "Crazy, it's a hanging fisher, the controller of the dragon boat. This guy is talking to the controller of the dragon boat." Someone exclaimed in a daze, "So strong. This kind of power can definitely kill an ordinary peak-level dangling fisher with one blow." Someone kept swallowing. Is this the fucking strong master who ranks 3rd on the wanted list? So strong. How can we chase him at this level? 5 times the power of the majestic mystic spell, plus the weight of the embroidery needle, and Han Fei was falling from the sky. What kind of power did he have at that moment? Even Han Fei himself couldn't estimate it. The hanging fisher's face turned cold, and in the blink of an eye, a crab pincer phantom rose into the air and collided with Han Fei's embroidery needle. Rumble! The entire dragon boat was shaken, and broken pieces of wood flew across the top of the dragon boat. The hanging fisher slid backward on the top of the dragon boat. Because he didn't use his full strength, he accidentally stepped on a hole in the roof of the ship and fell into it. Han Fei's situation was even worse. The gap between a dangling fisher and a hanging fisher was too big. Although Han Fei had experience fighting inferior manfish, those inferior manfish were of a high level, but their understanding and level were too low compared to sea demons, and their combat ability was greatly reduced. Compared to humans, the inferior manfish were much weaker in terms of spiritual heritage, contractual spiritual beasts, combat skills, and reaction speed. The hanging fisher on the dragon boat was very strong. After the blow, Han Fei flew back thousands of meters, feeling that his hand was almost broken. He quickly put away the embroidery needle. If he didn't put it away, he was sure that he wouldn't be able to hold it anymore. "I'll flash." Because of the delay, Han Fei had already seen the countless fishing boats chasing after him. They were overwhelming, horrifying. "I'll flash, I'll flash, I'll flash." Han Fei crushed the flash stones in his hand as if they were worthless, and his whole body turned into a phantom in the sky. Except for appearing near the dragon boat twice, after the 3rd time, he had been far away from the dragon boat. After dozens of times, Han Fei didn't know where he had flashed to. Anyway, Han Fei had too many flash stones to use. After crushing hundreds of flash stones, seeing that there was no one in the sky, Han Fei took out the wind god boat again and began to run away. Han Fei ran so fast that he didn't give others a chance to catch him. On the dragon boat, after Han Fei ran away, the hanging fisher didn't chase after him. He was horrified at this moment. How strong was Han Fei's power just now? He looked up at his fist, only to find that there was blood dripping down. How is it possible? He is only an advanced dangling fisher. The hanging fisher's face darkened. At this moment, he needed to seriously consider Han Fei's words. If he grew into a peak-level dangling fisher, would he be stronger? Although he didn't quite believe that a dangling fisher could challenge him, that was for ordinary people. For a talented heavenly talent, this was not necessarily true. After all, there was indeed an example. Chao Tian once killed an intermediate hanging fisher. Few people knew about this, but it didn't mean that no one knew about it. At that time, Chao Tian was just an advanced dangling fisher. However, Han Fei didn't need to know this. He only knew that he had run away. What he didn't know was that dozens of seconds after Han Fei ran away, on the dragon boat, the hanging fisher calmly ordered his subordinates to repair the top deck. Although the dragon boat was very strong and sturdy, it was only a large ship in the level 3 fishery. How could it withstand the full bombardment of a hanging fisher? Among them, one of the subordinates behind the hanging fisher was reporting at this moment, "My lord, we found Xia Shaochun." The hanging fisher was slightly taken aback. Why did this subordinate tell him this information? It was reasonable for him to catch Han Fei. Han Fei had killed people on the dragon boat, so he did it to uphold the rules of the dragon boat. Although Xia Shaochan was also with Han Fei, he had no reason to kill this person. Was there something wrong with this subordinate's head? However, just at the moment when he was stunned, the subordinate in front of him disappeared. He only saw a shadow suddenly wrapping around his body. Oh! A terrifying dragon roar exploded in his ears. Following that, an incomparably tyrannical saber light swept toward his neck. Bam! The hanging fisher was shocked, gathered all the spiritual energy in his body on his neck, and then subconsciously punched back, and the fist shadow rushed hundreds of meters away. Xia Xiaochan's figure appeared 100 meters away. There is one more person who wants to kill you. Pay attention to your head. As soon as the hanging fisher was about to take action, Xia Shaochan disappeared. Damn it! This hanging fisher was only the controller of the dragon boat, but he couldn't control everything. If he could, he really wanted to instantly activate the dragon boat array and trap Xia Shaochan in the boat. Unfortunately, at this moment, Xia Shaochan had already run away. She squeezed the flash stone and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. The hanging fisher touched his neck with his hand and looked at it, only to find that it was bleeding too. If Xia Shaochan had become a hanging fisher, wouldn't he have been killed on the spot? He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Compared with Han Fei, this Xia Shaochan was even more frightening. After she got close to him, even he didn't notice her at all. This was really weird. After all, Han Fei was a soul warrior and a spirit gatherer, and his fighting style was big. However, it was different for the hunters. Just like Xia Shaochan, she only wanted to kill him with one blow. If she failed, she would flee thousands of miles away. Faintly, the hanging fisher regretted attacking Han Fei. Looking at the frightened eyes of his subordinates at the moment, the hanging fisher snorted coldly. "What are you looking at?" The group of people hurriedly apologized and fled. When everyone left, the hanging fisher suddenly felt some liquid flowing over his cheek from his ear, and then he touched it with his hand, only to find it was all blood. Immediately afterward, blood began to flow from his nostrils. Fuck! In fact, the battle was more than that. After being swept by the million knife art, Chen Aochen was not seriously injured and just fell into the sea. At this moment, he was blaming himself. He underestimated this opponent so much that he didn't fuse with his spiritual beast, contractual spiritual beast, or even use any combat skills. Who the fuck would have expected that Han Fei had nearly 100 ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Are these fucking ultra-quality spiritual weapons free? Did they fall from the sky? Even the descendants of the big clans wouldn't be given ultra-quality spiritual weapons by their families. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to gain experience at all. He had reason to suspect that these ultra-quality spiritual weapons of Han Fei all came from the steps into the sea, and it was very likely to be related to the abnormal movements of the steps into the sea. Just a few minutes after Chen Aochen swallowed the pill, a figure suddenly appeared on the bottom of the sea. The man was holding a halberd, breaking through the waves, and a red and white dragon shadow suddenly came. White dragon feather spirit shrimp, Tangu. It was too fast and too fierce. The halberd came too fast and too fierce, as if a white dragon was swimming in the bottom of the sea. Hey, Tangu, what do you mean? Chen Aochen's hands turned bright golden, grabbing the halberd, and his whole body was pushed all the way to the bottom of the sea. On the seabed sand, hundreds of meters long scratches were left. Oh! The halberd in Tang Ji's hand was dazzling, and the top suddenly exploded, and then a series of fancy hammer blows followed. Tangu was full of fighting spirit. Every time he attacked, he had the strength of 1,000 kilograms, causing explosions on the seabed. Chen Aochen hadn't fully recovered from his injuries, so he was directly suppressed by Tangu and whipped by the halberd. Fortunately, he was good at combat and his physique was also extremely strong. Otherwise, ordinary people would have been whipped to death by Tangu. Chen Aochen said angrily, "Tangu, what do you mean?" Tangu stood in the muddy sand, with the halberd erected beside him. "I heard that there are two unparalleled fists in the Thousand Stars sect. One is Chao Tian, and the other is you, Chen Aochen. Today I'll fight you." Third update, asking for votes. The author said, "There's nothing special to say. Eat well, sleep well, write well." End of this chapter. Chapter 483. In the end, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan were separated. Now, Han Fei had no intention of hiding his tracks at all. Therefore, when he escaped, he deliberately let others see him. Compared with Xia Shaochan, he was the one who stayed the longest on the steps into the sea and even walked to the end. If someone wanted to dig out the secrets of the steps into the sea, the first person they would look for was definitely not Xia Shaochan, but Han Fei. In fact, Han Fei was not worried about Xia Shaochan's safety. In terms of the ability to escape and hide, Xia Shaochan was now almost unparalleled. Whether Xia Shaochan knew the Thousand Faces technique or not, she only needed the metamorphosis water. That thing could turn into anything. Xia Shaochan could even turn the metamorphosis water into a big fish and wrap herself in it. No matter how great the metamorphosis water was, it might not be able to find her. Of course, Han Fei also deliberately separated from Xia Shaochan. He could share some things with Xia Shaochan, but people always had to keep some of their own secrets. Besides, after the steps into the sea this time, Han Fei was even more eager to find the treasures left by Ren Tianfei. After getting the art of invincibility, Han Fei felt that his physique was unparalleled. But he was almost certain that Ren Tianfei, who had a strong body, must have left some treasures about body tempering. After all, a person's greatest achievement was his own creation. Once he died, Ren Tianfei didn't want his special skills to be buried. If Han Fei could find this treasure in the level 3 fishery, at that time, coupled with the art of invincibility, God knew how strong he would become. In addition to this reason, there was another reason why Han Fei didn't want to take Xia Shaochan there. That was because the abyssal chasm was too dangerous. According to the exploration notes of the abyssal chasm given to him by Yang Ruiyun, this place was full of dangers. For hundreds of years, countless teams had gone here to explore every year. At first, these people were promised a lot of benefits, but later, everyone found that those who went in didn't come back, so no one was willing to go. In the end, the level 3 fishery dispatched an entire dragon boat with nearly 200,000 people to go together. As a result, the dragon boat was never heard from again, and no one had ever seen it in the level 3 fishery. Since then, the dragon boats of the level 3 fishery began to detour when they were 50,000 kilometers away from the abyssal chasm and no longer moved forward. Of course, the exploration notes of the abyssal chasm also recorded that someone had returned from the abyssal chasm. However, most of them had either gone mad or turned into fools. These people all had one thing in common, and that was that they were all skinny like dried corpses. In addition to these, There were also a lot of small incidents about the abyssal chasm. For example, someone once chased the golden fish near the abyssal chasm and accidentally entered it. In the end, when he came out, he had already become a middle-aged man, and he was also a fool. For example, someone had explored the abyssal chasm. Not long after he entered, he came out on the other side of the sea. He had traveled hundreds of thousands of miles. There were also people who didn't want to enter the sea. Instead, they wanted to fly over the abyssal chasm. In the end, by the time they flew out, the people on the ship had already turned into skeletons. There were far too many such strange records, so many that it was impossible to count them all. When Han Fei carefully read the exploration notes of the abyssal chasm, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Isn't this the fucking Bermuda Triangle? Han Fei felt that reading the exploration notes of the abyssal chasm was as interesting as reading the unsolved mysteries of the sea. Just like what he knew in his previous life, the Bermuda Triangle, one of the most terrifying forbidden areas in the world, was just as weird as this. No matter what kind of plane, cruise ship, or ship it would make you disappear. In fact, in his previous life, Han Fei had studied the Bermuda Triangle and once wanted to explore there. In the early days, people just thought that the sea here was chaotic, prone to storms, and there were eddies on the bottom of the sea. Some people said that there were wild wolves, tsunamis, and so on. In the end, when it was really inexplicable, people often associated the unknown with theology, saying that there was an illusory eye in the Bermuda Triangle that could make the people on the ship get lost. But when technology developed, the most advanced instruments would fail, and planes would also disappear. At that time, people began to put forward the magnetic field hypothesis, which was unanimously accepted by everyone. But there were also unexplainable weird phenomena. For example, when a plane flew over the Bermuda Triangle, decades had passed in the outside world. Was this also a problem with the magnetic field? But Han Fei knew that those in the Bermuda Triangle were all rumors, and some scientific teams had specially refuted them. But Han Fei didn't know whether they were true or not. Now, this abyssal chasm seemed to be even more dangerous than the Bermuda Triangle. In Bermuda, there were people who could walk out of it, and it was even a tourist attraction. It was just that it would break out intermittently. Very few people who entered the abyssal chasm could escape. Han Fei cursed, "Fuck, Zhang Xuanyu, you idiot, why did you come to this damn place?" Han Fei had another purpose, which was to find Zhang Xuanyu, which was more important than getting Ren Tianfen's treasures. After all, Zhang Xuanyu had been in there for a long time. Then Han Fei continued to curse angrily, "Ren Tianfen, you son of a bitch, do you want me to die fast enough?" The Level 3 fishery spans tens of thousands of kilometers. Why didn't you choose anywhere? Why did you hide the treasures in this abyssal chasm? 3 days later, the news that Han Fei controlled a fishing boat to enter the abyssal chasm spread throughout the dragon boat, and everyone who heard it was dumbfounded. Someone exclaimed, "He has already run away, and no one can catch up with him? Why did he run to the abyssal chasm? Is he courting death?" Someone was speechless. Lunatic, is this the gap between ordinary people and geniuses? Are all geniuses so bold? Someone sneered. Can geniuses do whatever they want? That's the abyssal chasm. I can imagine the scene of a heavenly talent dying here. Near the flowstone pit in the Level 3 fishery, Xia Shaochan appeared. In front of her, there was a squad trembling with fear, not daring to speak. Did that guy go to save Zhang Xuanyu? How can he save him in such a big place? Xia Shaochan asked, "Let me ask you, is there a fat man near the flowstone pit?" "Girl, that thing happened a long time ago." Xia Shaochan scoffed. "Bullshit. What I want is information. If you don't give me any information, I will throw you into the sea to feed the fish." Someone said with a sad face, "Girl, we really don't know." Suddenly, someone hurriedly said, "Girl, you can go to the Spectre to buy information." Everyone in the Level 3 fishery knows that the Spectre's information is the most accurate. We are just here to try our luck. Xia Shaochan frowned slightly and murmured, "Spectre, evil shield. Okay, you go find Zhang Xuanyu, and I will go find Lu Renquang and Little White. Chao Chiu and Two Swords were drifting near the 10,000 Smoke Valley in the Level 3 fishery. Chao Chiu held a piece of information and exclaimed, Han Fei went to the Abyssal Chasm. My sea god. Does he dare to go there? Two Swords, let's go to the Abyssal Chasm, shall we? Wang Zetian shook his head. Before we went out, I don't believe that no one told you that you can go anywhere in the Level 3 fishery except the Abyssal Chasm. Chao Chiu wailed, but there must be a big secret in that place. Wang Zetian sneered. You have to be alive to know it. If you want to go, I won't stop you, but don't expect anyone to find you. Chao Chiu said angrily, then forget it. When Han Fei comes back, I will ask him what it is like inside. Wang Zetian smiled. So, in fact, you have long known that the black and white ghosts are Han Fei and Xia Shaochan? Chao Chiu looked up at the sky. I don't know. I just think they are very powerful. Wang Zetian snorted. Then pray that he can come back alive. At this moment, Tangu was holding a piece of information, sitting in a room on the 4th floor of a dragon boat. Outside the boat, the spirit-absorbing array was being activated, but Tangu didn't feel it at all. Mu Ling came over with some snacks. Don't worry. He is not a fool. Since he went to the Abyssal Chasm without hesitation, he must have a reason. Tangu looked serious. He didn't take Xia Shaochan with him. He went alone. Mu Ling was slightly taken aback. Until now, the two of them hadn't seen what Xia Shaochan looked like in person. Mu Ling couldn't help but say softly, Have you found one thing? Tangu raised his head and asked in confusion, What? Mu Ling smiled slightly. Your brother is not a simple person. With the sea token, he still dares to run around in the Level 3 fishery. He went to the Seaborn Grassland, but the big red trunk in the center of the Seaborn Grassland disappeared. He went to the Undersea City, but the Undersea City collapsed into ruins. He went to the steps into the sea, and now the steps into the sea shake dozens of times a day. Everyone's sacrifices have gone wrong. Tangu couldn't help grinning, nodded proudly, and said coldly, No wonder he is my brother. Mu Ling smiled, but in fact she was rolling her eyes in her heart. Your brother is simply a troublemaker. Wherever he goes, there will be trouble. If he stays with you for a while longer, he may lead you astray. I can't rest assured. In the Level 3 fishery, while many people were surprised by Han Fei's actions, Han Fei himself didn't feel anything. At this moment, he had rushed to the edge of the Abyssal Chasm 50,000 kilometers away. To be precise, it should be about 30,000 kilometers away. At this moment, dozens of kilometers away from Han Fei, 3 huge tornadoes were spinning on the sea, and the sea was surging violently. The wind god boat loomed in the sea, and from time to time, fish jumped out of the water and were whipped to death by 9 tails on the boat. Chapter 484. Han Fei swaggered all the way here and didn't stop at all. Because he had enough treasures and materials, it didn't matter if he continued to rob or search some small secret realms. It had been more than 5 months since he entered the Level 3 fishery, almost 6 months. Han Fei thought that he was now in a peak state. Ren Tianfei's statement was actually very clear. This place was very dangerous. However, he just said that dangling fishers might not be able to come here. The implication was that hanging fishers could come here at most. Han Fei didn't think realm was a big deal. So what if they were hanging fishers? He could fight against hanging fishers now, which at least proved that he was qualified to enter the Abyssal Chasm. And if he came in, there must be a way. Otherwise, Ren Tianfei wouldn't let him come here. After all, he had passed the first 2 tests. No matter how shameless Ren Tianfei was, he wouldn't throw the indestructible body and candle dragon blood away like toys, right? At this time, Han Fei was wondering if he could travel underwater since the hurricane was so strong. However, on second thought, it was okay above the sea, where the field of vision was wide. But at this time, the bottom of the sea was not necessarily so calm. Judging from the marine creatures that jumped out of the sky from time to time, the bottom of the sea must be turbulent. Standing at the bow of the boat, Han Fei perceived the dynamics of the bottom of the sea and found that the seawater here seemed to be able to block perception. His perception range of 5,000 meters could only be perceived 500 meters here. Even at a depth of 500 meters, Han Fei saw a lot of rare and even exotic creatures. Within the nearest 50 meters from the sea surface, there were mostly some squids, some translucent small fish, and some ferocious and ugly big predatory fish. They were floating with the waves and seemed to be too lazy to swim. Han Fei controlled the wind god boat and moved forward with the wind. Although this level of hurricane and tornado was not weak, it would definitely be a disaster in the level 2 fishery. But here, with Han Fei's current physique, he was not afraid even if he was swept in. The power of the hurricane couldn't shake him. Half a day later, Han Fei traveled another 10,000 kilometers. Along the way, he braved the wind and waves. The wind god boat was like a missile flying in the sky, unscrupulous. Han Fei looked up at the sky. At this moment, waves were rolling everywhere, and the sky couldn't be seen at all as it was shrouded in thick black clouds. He didn't even know whether it was day or night, let alone the sun, the moon, and the stars. He couldn't see anything at all. Under such circumstances, it was neither day nor night. The darkness was more like grayish-black, giving off a very strange feeling. All of a sudden, the wind god boat that was speeding forward suddenly slowed down. Han Fei rushed forward in a daze. Ah! What happened? Han Fei was still injecting spiritual energy into the fishing boat, but no matter how hard he tried, the wind god boat still wouldn't move. Holy shit, it can fail too? Han Fei was dumbfounded. Are you fucking kidding me? This is a floating stone. Although he didn't know what the levitating stone was, could it really be a magnetic field? But this levitating stone didn't look like something magnetic at all. Han Fei stopped injecting spiritual energy and looked around. Except for the scattered tornadoes, there was only darkness waiting for him in front of Han Fei. Could it be that I have to swim over? Han Fei let the wind god boat rise and fall in the waves and opened the sea map of the abyssal chasm given by Old Bai in his hand. On the sea map, Han Fei soon found the hurricane sea area where he was. Because this place was marked, a circle of hurricanes and tornadoes encircled this area. And under the sea area, there were secret realms everywhere. Han Fei looked around casually and found as many as 20 or 30 secret realms. Around the abyssal chasm, there were hundreds of secret realms scattered in this hurricane sea area. If he continued to move forward, the number of secret realms would decrease exponentially. After crossing the hurricane sea area, there were no more than 6 secret realms left. Among these 6 secret realms, 3 were in the big crack of the abyssal chasm. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. This map is so fucking precious. If others entered the abyssal chasm, they would almost certainly die. The map in his school even marked the secret realms in the big crack. God knew which weirdo in the school had explored here. He even had the time to draw a map. Han Fei hesitated for a moment, put away the fishing boat, and dove into the water. He didn't know what happened to Zhang Xuanyu, but the hundreds of secret realms in the hurricane sea area were not to be trifled with. If he could be sure of the secret realms, he could dig out a few of them, which would be very valuable. It was very likely that he would dig out something extraordinary. As soon as he entered the sea, Han Fei felt that the sea currents were surging wildly. He also found that the sea currents were completely directionless. Sometimes, a huge force pulled him to the left, and sometimes, a huge wave pulled him to the right. Sometimes, there was a current that was clearly surging towards him, but in the next moment, the current actually flowed backwards and actually sucked him forward. Han Fei released spiritual energy all over his body, and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp attached to him. He broke through this weird vortex and swooped down headfirst. Along the way, Han Fei saw those disgusting big fish clearly. Their bodies were blue, their mouths were full of sharp teeth, and there were bite marks on their bodies. Some parts of these strange fish's bodies had been bitten through, but they were still alive. How could they still be fish when half of their bodies were swimming in the sea? These big fish didn't have a high IQ. They rushed up and bit at Han Fei. However, how could these ordinary rare big fish be a match for the 9-tailed mantis shrimp? Today's 9-star chains were no longer what they used to be. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp was a legendary creature after all. Any big fish caught by the chains could be twisted into a fried dough twist with a casual twist. Han Fei was watching these fish, and suddenly he was alarmed and leaned to the right. At the moment when his body leaned to the right, a vortex of water rolled past Han Fei. Shit, what's that? Han Fei could be sure that it was definitely not a naturally formed water nest because it was only a small section. When Han Fei looked back, he found that the water nest had disappeared. Han Fei was vigilant and no longer paid attention to the fish creatures, but dove down seriously all the way. During the process, he encountered no less than 20 strange vortexes. On average, he would encounter one every 2 minutes. When Han Fei dived to a depth of 2,000 meters, he was a little stunned. In front of him, there was still darkness. The feeling of surging waves had long since disappeared. However, the water nests that formed for some reason were still there, and they appeared very frequently. Han Fei frowned. Weird, this place is too weird. Just when he dove cautiously, he suddenly looked up and found that the sea was trembling slightly. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't feel it at all. However, in his mind, Han Fei felt the demon purification pots suddenly tremble. Immediately afterward, Han Fei saw that tens of meters away, a big fish that was about to bite him suddenly turned over, belly up, and died. Fuck. That feeling was very strange. Han Fei felt that it might be a kind of sound, but he couldn't hear it at all. At the moment when the big fish died, Han Fei felt that his internal organs suddenly shrank and goosebumps appeared on his skin. His brain paused for a moment. Ultrasound or infrasound? When Han Fei recovered, his body was falling down. He shivered and covered himself with a spiritual energy protective cover. Just now, he felt the vibration and seemed to have heard something in the illusion, but it was too fucking weak. Therefore, Han Fei's first reaction was infrasound. In the past, Han Fei had read some books about infrasound geomagnetic gravitational force. He couldn't remember how to describe it specifically. Anyway, when strange natural disasters such as earthquakes, storms, and volcanic eruptions occurred in the ocean, a kind of infrasound would vibrate with it. This kind of sound couldn't be heard by human ears, but it was very destructive. It would probably put the seawater in an environment where the vibration frequency was between 6 Hz and 7 Hz. And in this environment, people would feel extremely tired, and their heart and nervous system would be paralyzed. That was what Han Fei felt at that moment just now. Damn it, should I have stayed on the boat? Wait, I haven't reached the abyssal chasm yet. If it's really so dangerous, then how did the senior in the academy draw the map of the secret realm of the Hurricane Sea area? After about 500 meters, Han Fei finally saw the bottom of the sea. It had to be said that swimming at this depth was simply pseudoscience, superscience, and the nonsense of science fiction. Han Fei didn't see the terrain clearly, nor did he see the secret realm clearly, but he saw groups of blue luminous balls in the seawater one after another. Han Fei swam closer to take a look curiously, only to find that it was not a creature at all, nor a ball, but a sheet as thin as paper, or even without any thickness at all. Han Fei casually hooked a stone from the bottom of the sea and threw it at the blue luminous sheet. However, as soon as the stone was thrown up, it disappeared. Fuck. Chapter 485. Han Fei immediately stepped back and almost peed his pants. The stone sank into the blue luminous film. It was like a portal? But looking at the thousands of blue luminous films around him, Han Fei was a little stunned. There was no such water area on the sea map. Are you fucking kidding me? Han Fei ignored these blue luminous films. Only the heavens knew what this thing was. What would happen if someone fell in? Where would they go? Han Fei moved quickly on the bottom of the sea. After more than an hour, the blue luminous films disappeared, and he felt that he had finally walked out of the sea area covered by the blue luminous films. At this time, he encountered a stone platform, a very, very large square stone platform. Han Fei was overjoyed. This was one of the secret realms. He remembered that there was a place on the fish skin map that was not a small dot, but a small square the size of a dime. Oh, good heavens, the first secret realm is finally here. Without the hexagon starfish, Han Fei had to search for the seal with the half-baked spirit-gathering scripture. He swam on this platform for a long time, but he didn't even see a single sea creature. Strange. Han Fei suddenly found that since he encountered the blue luminous films just now, the sea creatures around him seemed to have disappeared, except for the occasional ordinary fish and shrimps swimming around. And there were clams everywhere, so he didn't feel that this sea area was lacking in creatures. But when he got on this huge stone platform, Han Fei felt strange. The stone platform was too empty, and he could see everything around him. There were only some snails lying on it, but no special creatures, not even fish and crabs. How could such a weird thing not attract his attention? However, just as Han Fei was searching for the secret realm, another wave of weird tremors appeared. This tremor directly made Han Fei narrow his eyes, and his brain went blank for a few seconds. When the weird tremor disappeared, Han Fei immediately opened his eyes. In the end, he was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. Where's the stone platform? Where's my big stone platform? Han Fei was horrified. He was standing in the center of the stone platform just now, but he was hit by a weird tremor. In the blink of an eye, he closed his eyes and opened his eyes again, and then he was in another place. It was like lying on your bed at home, hugging a big black bear to sleep. However, in the blink of an eye, you found yourself lying on another bed in another room with a girl in your arms. Who wouldn't be shocked by this? Han Fei pinched himself, feeling the pain. He looked at the terrain again, only to find that it had changed and he couldn't recognize anything. What else was there to look for? He hurriedly swam to the surface of the sea. The bottom of the sea was too strange, so it was better to swim upstream. It would be best if he could find these small secret realms, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. Anyway, the fishery was so big that there were countless secret realms. Whoever found one more secret realm or one less wouldn't make much difference. Even though Han Fei had no idea why he moved to another place, this place seemed more reasonable than the previous one. There were very few creatures here, or rather, no creatures at all. After swimming for a while, Han Fei finally saw a big conch that looked like a chrysanthemum floating in the water. A string of data appeared in his eyes. Name, Conchus. Introduction. This is a special migratory conch that likes to live in seaweed and likes to eat the roots of spiritual plants. Because it eats too much grass, sea chrysanthemums grow on its shell. After soaking, it can increase spiritual power. It has strong defense power and can spit out enchanting mist. Level 33. Quality rare. Spiritual energy greater than 1,620 points. Effect. Long-term consumption is beneficial to broadening the meridians and improving spiritual power. Collectible. Sea chrysanthemum. Hardly had Han Fei finished reading the information when he saw a large number of golden particles floating in the sea. Han Fei stretched out one hand, and the surrounding seawater gathered, trying to push these golden particles away. However, to Han Fei's surprise, some of the golden particles ignored his water control technique and fell directly beside him. Then, Han Fei saw that Xia Xiaochan was pouting and saying, "I'll let you kiss me. Just one kiss." Han Fei was excited. Who the fuck could bear this? He went up and was about to kiss her, but before he kissed her he saw that Xia Xiaochan turned into a ferocious big fish, bearing her fangs. Shoot! When Han Fei came back to his senses, he found that the conchus had run away. It turned out that this temporary illusion was just a life-saving means of the big conchus. Han Fei shuddered all over. What the hell are these things? Ordinary snails all have hallucinations. If I'm not careful, I'll change places. Intend for you, old turtle? Don't let me see you again. After a moment, a figure broke out of the water, and Han Fei stepped on the water and looked around. Have I passed the hurricane area? No way. It can't be. Han Fei was a little stunned. There were no hurricanes or tornadoes around. The whole sea was calm, and even the sky was glowing with a faint white light. Han Fei was speechless. I was just confused for a moment, and I passed through the hurricane area? That sea area was tens of thousands of kilometers long, okay? Good. Han Fei swallowed and took out the wind god boat. Han Fei tried to control the wind god boat. As a result, as before, the wind god boat was still in a state of failure. Immediately afterward, Han Fei tried to perceive whether there were any abnormalities under the nearby seawater that he hadn't discovered. However, Han Fei didn't even perceive anything. His spiritual perception didn't even extend half a meter. Shoot, how is this possible? Han Fei was dumbfounded. When he was in the hurricane area, he could at least perceive 500 meters. Although it was 10 times smaller, he could at least perceive it. However, here, he couldn't even use his spiritual power to probe out. How terrifying was this? Just when Han Fei was in a panic, his eyes suddenly turned to the front. In his field of vision, he saw a dark shadow of a ship coming towards him. At that moment, Han Fei only felt goosebumps all over his body. No one had come to this place for a long time. Why did a ship suddenly appear? However, this ship was clearly heading straight for him. Han Fei narrowed his eyes, the blood-drinking knife appeared on his waist, the blue sea wandering dragon dagger was about to come out of his body, and the embroidery needle was held in his hand. The ship came very slowly, and it took several hundred minutes to float to Han Fei. Hiss! At the first sight of the ship, Han Fei felt that all the hair on his body was almost standing on end. There was no one on this ship at all. The ship was full of seaweed, and some places had even decayed as if it had been abandoned for hundreds of years. But why did such a ship come for him? What did this mean? Was it a real ghost ship? Han Fei certainly didn't believe it. There must be a reason why this abandoned ship came to him. If the reason was not on the ship, then it must be underwater. The embroidery needle in Han Fei's hand was immediately replaced by the blue sea wandering dragon rod, and he threw the hook into the water smoothly. However, what made the corners of Han Fei's mouth twitch was that it had really become a fishing game. His spiritual power couldn't penetrate the fishing hook. This was different from using spiritual perception directly. When using a fishing hook, the fishing hook was almost a part of his body, equivalent to his eyes. Now, he couldn't see the situation around the fishing hook, which was equivalent to being blind. However, Han Fei didn't immediately put away the fishing rod, but held the fishing rod with his left hand, and then poked the abandoned fishing boat full of seaweed next to his fishing boat with the embroidery needle. Creak, creak, Han Fei curled his lips. Why are you still creaking? Why are you still creaking? Although Han Fei was cursing, he still found something special. How heavy was the embroidery needle? How strong was his strength? After being poked by him for a long time, the ship only creaked but was not broken, which showed that the quality of the ship itself was actually good. Another situation was that he pressed hard against the side of the fishing boat, but he couldn't push it away from him. This was the weird part. Han Fei suddenly got up. The sea was too calm. The floating stone couldn't be used at all, and the fishing boat couldn't move. Therefore, he needed to consider whether he should take this abandoned fishing boat or not. Of course, he had another choice, that was, to jump into the water and see for himself what was underwater. After thinking about it again and again, Han Fei remembered that when he just came up from the sea, he only encountered a chrysanthemum conch. There shouldn't be anything else at the bottom of the water, right? He didn't believe that with his current strength, there was something underwater that could kill him. So he took a deep breath. I'd like to see what tricks you are playing. Chapter 486. Han Fei didn't know why, but the first thing he thought of in such a weird place was to run away. But at this moment, in a situation where he knew nothing, he wanted to take a look. Han Fei clenched his fists subconsciously, and a layer of faint golden light covered his fists. He activated the art of invincibility subconsciously. Plop! The moment he entered the water, Han Fei felt cold and a little creeped out. A few minutes ago, he just came out of the water and didn't have this feeling. Just because an abandoned fishing boat came over, he suddenly had such a change? Han Fei immediately looked down the abandoned fishing boat. However, what he saw was more than creeped out. Han Fei felt that he was about to explode. In Han Fei's vision, there was a person at the bottom of the abandoned fishing boat. To be precise, it was not a person at all. It had been turned into a mummy, with only 2 big black holes left in its eyes, and its bones were exposed. There was no flesh at all. For you. Before the person answered, information was already displayed in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Ghost Ferryman. Introduction: a corpse controlled by an unknown force, with copper skin and iron bones. No one below the level of Hanging Fisher can shake it. It's a kind of undead creature, but it has no intelligence at all and only exists as an underwater ferryman. Level: none. Quality: none. Contains spiritual energy: none. Unabsorbable. Han Fei's eyelids kept twitching and he tried to calm himself down. An undead creature? No one below the level of Hanging Fisher can shake it? But I'm afraid I can. At this moment, Han Fei was no longer thinking about whether to kill this ghost ferryman or not, but the word ferryman. Since it was a ferryman, there must be an end point and a direction, right? Besides, wasn't it necessary to ferry people because a certain section of the river couldn't be passed at all? Han Fei thought for a moment and jumped out of the water again. Then, Han Fei put away the wind god boat and jumped onto the ghost boat. Han Fei frowned in disgust and stepped on the unknown seaweed. As soon as he stepped on it, a green, sticky, turbid liquid immediately flowed out. This thing was more like some kind of moss than seaweed. The demon purification pot probably didn't even bother to prompt the information of this thing. Han Fei glanced at the fishing boat. The cabin had long been damaged. The wood had collapsed and was covered with this green moss. The fish cabin had long been damaged, and so had the planks nearby. From above, he could see down. Even the bottom of the boat was broken. Han Fei could even see the two ribs of the ferryman through the bottom of the boat. Damn it, since I'm already here, I'll just take things as they come. The abandoned fishing boat under his feet had already begun to move, sailing steadily into the darkness in the distance on the calm surface of the sea that only slightly undulated. Han Fei had been standing on the bow of the boat like a statue, with one hand on his waist. If anything happened, he could draw his saber. Just like that, he stood there quietly for 6 hours. Although the speed of the fishing boat was slow, it had traveled about 2,000 kilometers. Han Fei guessed that this might be close to the core of the abyssal chasm. Anyway, it was impossible for him to stay 20,000 kilometers away. Han Fei estimated that he was now around 10,000 to 15,000 kilometers away. This was not a baseless guess. After crossing the Hurricane Sea, he was already within 20,000 kilometers of the abyssal chasm. And according to the current, if he was close to the Hurricane Sea, the water surface couldn't be so flat. Gulp! Suddenly, Han Fei looked down at his belly. He didn't know when, but Han Fei always felt that there seemed to be something wrong with him. When his stomach growled, he suddenly found that he was hungry. The feeling of hunger, Han Fei hadn't felt for a long time. Because as long as there was spiritual energy, people would not feel hungry. Don't be fooled by the fact that this group of people had to cook every day in school. In fact, it was just to satisfy a momentary desire for good food. In fact, they wouldn't feel hungry even if they didn't eat. They wouldn't feel full even if they ate a lot. As long as they moved their spiritual energy, the food could be digested. However, at this moment, Han Fei was full of spiritual energy. He glanced at the sky. There were spiritual energy spots scattered, and there were many of them. However, since there was plenty of spiritual energy, why did he feel hungry? While Han Fei was thinking, he saw a school of blue fish swimming across the sea. But Han Fei also saw one of them jump out of the sea. It was about the size of a palm, blue all over, and its fins were beautiful like wrinkled petals. Its belly was as round as a pregnant woman's, which was surprising. The fish. There was no information appearing in his eyes, which made Han Fei's heart tighten. This kind of small fish didn't seem to have a high level. Han Fei even doubted that they even had combat power. Not to mention the current demon purification pot, even if it was the old demon purification pot, it wouldn't have any problem reading its information, but the fact was in front of him. This group of blue fish swam happily in front of his eyes, and from time to time, they looked at him with their eyes. Han Fei immediately chuckled. "I'm being nice to you, aren't I?" Immediately, he took out his fishing rod and cast the hook at them. Han Fei thought that he could easily catch them with hook kiss, flash hook, or thousand twining. However, when the hook fell into the water, these small fish directly turned into rays of blue light, scattering in the sea like streams of light, and the fishing rod didn't know where to start. Han Fei tried several times to hook directly at the blue light, but every time he felt that he had hooked it, no fish took the bait. Interesting. Taste the power of my void-breaking technique. Han Fei put away the fishing rod, and after a while, these small blue fish changed from blue light to normal. Han Fei cast the hook again. This time, the hook suddenly appeared on the heads of the small blue fish, and they had no time to turn into light. Han Fei grinned. Arrogant, you still got me, didn't you? However, as soon as Han Fei smiled, he froze in the next second. The small blue fish on the hook exploded with a bang. There was not the slightest bit of power, just a simple explosion. It seemed to be saying, even if I explode myself, I won't let you succeed. A patch of light blue, sticky stuff splashed on Han Fei's body. Han Fei put away the fishing rod in disgust and didn't plan to fish anymore. When he was about to shake off these sticky things, he suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Huh! Fish roe?" Fish roe was naturally fish eggs, and the uncooked fish eggs were like small grains of sand, round and round. However, what surprised Han Fei was that there were so many fish roe in the belly of this fish. Han Fei was amazed and sighed again. There were so many strange things in the world. Each of these small blue fish had a round belly. What did they eat to grow up? Han Fei was just a little curious and didn't intend to look into it. After all, these small blue fish didn't pose any threat to him. After another hour, Han Fei frowned again. He was getting hungrier and hungrier, and he felt that the energy in his body was flowing away. Something's wrong. Han Fei's expression slowly became serious. Energy was flowing away. It had been more than a day since he entered the abyssal chasm. In just over a day, the energy contained in his body was gone. What kind of joke was this? Han Fei didn't immediately set up the big pot to eat, but immediately filled his body with spiritual energy. Then he wrapped himself with spiritual energy to see if he would be hungry again. Sure enough, after an hour, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. The spiritual energy protective cover worked. During the 2 hours of the spiritual energy protective cover, Han Fei didn't feel any hungrier. However, there was another problem. How long could a normal dangling fisher last with a spiritual energy protective cover? In fact, when Han Fei gradually grew up, he found that the energy consumed by a spiritual energy protective cover actually increased with the growth of his realm and level. But this increase was not inevitable and was completely controllable. For example, a fisher needed 50 points of spiritual energy to support a spiritual energy protective cover. Then, a fishing master also needed 50 points of spiritual energy to support a spiritual energy protective cover. But the 50 points of spiritual energy of a fishing master were much more practical and resilient than that of a fisher. Even if the effect of the same 50 points of spiritual energy protective cover was doubled, it was still not enough to withstand a blow from a master of the same level. Therefore, when fighting with others, the spiritual energy protective cover was usually instilled with spiritual energy according to the strength of the opponent. But Han Fei calculated that he needed 50 points of spiritual energy per breath, so an hour was at least 1,000 seconds. In that case, it would consume 50,000 points of spiritual energy in 2 hours. Han Fei couldn't help but take a breath. Even an ordinary spirit gatherer wouldn't be able to support this. If he wasn't a spirit gatherer, how long could he last with a spiritual energy protective cover? Chapter 487. The best way Han Fei could think of was for 2 spirit gatherers to stand face to face and transmit spiritual energy to each other. In this way, both sides could make use of the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to keep each other covered with a spiritual energy protective cover. But even with this method, it still didn't work. In theory, a spirit gatherer was just a spiritual energy bridging device, using himself as a conductor to control the direction of spiritual energy. But this didn't mean that the spiritual energy passing through his body must be his. On the contrary, a spirit gatherer had to keep gathering spiritual energy, which was actually constantly consuming the spiritual energy in his body. Although the consumption was small, it would eventually be exhausted. And it would definitely be consumed within 8 hours, or even less. Because a spirit gatherer constantly gathered spiritual energy, not only would he consume spiritual energy, but his spiritual power would also be exhausted. No wonder. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up, revealing a smile. No wonder there was almost no way out of the abyssal chasm. It would be strange if there was a way out. The energy in his body disappeared inexplicably, and his spiritual energy was not enough to support him for a few hours. What could he do if he didn't die? If he went out immediately when he entered the hurricane area, maybe he could go back safely. But if he was accidentally involved in this damn place, the fishing boat wouldn't move. If the fishing boat couldn't move, they would starve to death in minutes. Even if he swam back. Who the hell had the ability to swim tens of thousands of miles in a few hours? Maybe he would starve to death while he was swimming. When Han Fei removed the spiritual energy protective cover, after a while, the feeling of hunger hit him again. However, Han Fei still didn't eat but waited, wanting to see how much energy he could bear. However, after only 2 hours, Han Fei couldn't bear it anymore. He took out a pile of small dried fish and stuffed them into his mouth. Originally, Han Fei wanted to cook. Looking at the sticky seaweed on this small broken boat, he had no desire to eat, so he could only take out the small dried fish to eat. There was still a yellow-blooded sea cucumber in the pot of Forge the Universe that he hadn't eaten yet. As long as he took a bite of that thing, he could probably last for half a day. 12 hours. According to Han Fei's calculation, with his tough physique, he could hold on for about 6 hours, and then he would feel a little hungry. By the 8th hour, the hunger was getting stronger. By the 10th hour, he was already craving for food. By the 12th hour, he had reached the point where he had no choice but to eat. Han Fei suspected that most of the people who came in earlier must have been starved to death. However, he didn't panic at all. The food in Forge the Universe was piled up like a mountain. There were still hundreds of yellow-blooded sea cucumbers. Even if he had to swim, he could easily swim out. 2 days later, Han Fei didn't despise this dirty fishing boat anymore. After floating on the sea for 2 whole days, apart from those blue little fish, he didn't even see the shadow of a fucking person. Han Fei couldn't help but shout at the hole in the cabin, "Hey! Hey you, can't you move faster? I'm not bragging, but even if I were to swim by myself, I would still be faster than you. It's been almost 3 days. Why are you getting slower and slower? Why the fuck are you slowing down?" Han Fei was speechless. At the beginning, the ferryman was really fast. Especially in the first 10 hours, it traveled nearly 5,000 kilometers. Then the speed was halved, then halved again. Damn, now it was as slow as a fucking tractor. How could Han Fei not be anxious? Just when Han Fei was cursing and preparing to swim in the sea, a wisp of smoke suddenly floated past his eyes. Han Fei looked around. It was indeed smoke, but not much. But then, he saw a large expanse of gray smoke in front of him. Han Fei was shocked. Finally, the scene was going to change. Han Fei was very excited. At this time, it was not the time to worry about danger at all. According to the slow posture of this ferryman, a living person would have starved to death long ago. The new scene might be dangerous, but it might also be a turning point. Han Fei didn't believe that death was certain. He hadn't entered the big crack of the abyssal chasm yet. How could it be certain? After half an hour, the abandoned fishing boat slowly entered the thick fog. Han Fei found that the range of his vision was still good. He could see about 20 meters away. Plop. Soon after he entered the mist, Han Fei heard the sound of something falling down. He immediately knew that it was the sound of the blue fish jumping on the sea. However, in this fog, the frequency of their jumping was even more frequent. After traveling for about hundreds of meters, Han Fei suddenly pulled up the fishing hook and shot it out with a swish. When he retracted the fishing hook, he saw a pale yellow insect with wings hanging on the hook. In his eyes, information appeared. Name: yellow-winged flying insect. Introduction: a kind of insect that lives on the sea surface. It likes to eat energy and carrion. It is non-aggressive and will sting. When it falls on people, it will absorb energy. It is extremely stupid and has no sense of revenge. It is one of the baits that some fish in the sea like. Level 12 quality rare contains spiritual energy greater than 92 points. Effect inedible. Oh, interesting, there is even bait. Is it a reward for holding on for 3 days? Han Fei immediately hung the yellow-winged flying insect on the fishing hook, threw it into the water, and began to fish. There was no need for any fishing skill at all. As soon as the bait fell for less than 2 seconds, Han Fei felt a violent bite. Whoop! In the blink of an eye, a palm-sized blue fish was caught by Han Fei. In order to prevent this blue fish from suddenly exploding, Han Fei also specially turned on a spiritual energy protective cover. However, this time Han Fei was surprised. He didn't expect that this blue fish didn't explode but just flapped its tail and held its round belly, looking silly. Han Fei turned this palm-sized fish over and over again. It seemed to be no different from ordinary fish. Except for its blue whole body, beautiful fins, and pointed mouth, it seemed to have no special features. Han Fei was thinking about one thing. Can this small fish be eaten? He felt a little reluctant to eat it. After all, this fish was blue. He couldn't eat it like a blueberry, could he? If he ate a mouthful of blue and then stuck out his tongue, wouldn't it be scary? Although Han Fei didn't intend to eat it, he wrapped it with spiritual energy. After a few minutes, the small fish was cooked and emitted a tempting fragrance. The blood-drinking knife was completely reduced to a kitchen knife. Han Fei directly cut open the small fish's intestines and took out a large ball of blue fish roe. After taking out the fish roe, Han Fei threw the small blue fish away. Han Fei pinched the fish roe, then put it to his mouth and smelled it. He was very sure that the so-called fragrance just now was emitted by this fish roe. Hey! Sure enough, the fish roe is the key. Han Fei threw away the fish roe casually. From the beginning, he felt that there was something wrong. Along the way, there were no creatures except this blue fish, which shouldn't be the case. After all, when he was in the hurricane area, all kinds of creatures often jumped out of the sea, but then they all disappeared. Therefore, shortly after Han Fei entered this sea area, he began to suspect that there was something wrong with this blue fish. However, at that time, he couldn't catch the blue fish at all, so he didn't know what the problem was. Now, looking at the yellow-winged flying insects that often flew by in the mist, Han Fei seemed to have some understanding. Only by using this insect as bait could he catch the little blue fish. Ordinary people either couldn't bear the hunger during the 3 days of the ferry and went to the sea to look for food, or even if they could survive until here, they would almost starve to death. When people were on the verge of starvation, they couldn't resist the temptation of food at all. Therefore, Han Fei was sure that there was something wrong with this blue fish. They were deliberately luring him to eat them. Unfortunately, Han Fei laughed with his hands on his hips. Interesting. Is this the specialty of this sea area? If that's the case, there should be other abandoned specter ships nearby. Han Fei had a guess in his heart and he needed to confirm it. And the first step to confirm it was to wait for the next ghost ship. At this moment, Han Fei was not in a hurry. He had already understood where the real danger in this sea area came from. All he needed to do now was wait patiently. After all, the reason why a ferryman was called a ferryman was that there must be a destination for the ferryman. Han Fei took out a large pot, grabbed a yellow-blooded sea cucumber, sliced it, chopped it with scallions, oil, salt, and spiritual fruit as supplementary ingredients. He was ready to eat while waiting. Chapter 488. When Han Fei encountered another ghost ship, it was the 6th hour after he entered the fog area. At this moment, Han Fei jumped into the water again. Just as he had expected, there was also a specter ferryman under the specter ship. However, this ghost ship went to the periphery. Han Fei guessed that it should be waiting for the next human to enter this sea area. In this way, Han Fei encountered 7 such ghost ships in 2 days. Han Fei even found a human skeleton on one of the fishing boats. Han Fei guessed that the person must have starved to death on the way in or out of the ghost ship. Of course, the latter was more likely. If he couldn't bear the hunger when he came in, he would definitely dive to the bottom of the sea as soon as possible. In this way, he might have a chance. The reason why Han Fei didn't dive into the water on the way here was not because he was afraid, but because once he entered the water, the ghost ferryman would carry the abandoned fishing boat away. At that time, wouldn't he have to swim to death in this weird sea area? After all, in this damn place, who knew where was north, south, east, and west? If he swam in the wrong direction, who could he cry to? At this moment, Han Fei murmured, "Where the hell can't you go? Why are you running here? I only hope your sea-swallowing seashell is full of food. Otherwise, I really don't know if you can survive for such a long time." On the third day, Han Fei was eating sea cucumber potato chips. The way to make this thing was simple. He cut the sea cucumber into slices, mixed it with various seasonings, and cooked it. When it was cooked, he fished it out and drained the water with the water control technique, so the sea cucumber potato chips were formed. This was a way of eating that Han Fei suddenly thought of in the sea area that could swallow energy. After all, the energy stored in the human body was limited, and it was different to turn it into potato chips. If you want to absorb energy, just do it. Anyway, I have plenty of potato chips. Crack! Han Fei suddenly curled up the corners of his mouth. See, the fun is finally coming. Crack! Han Fei hurriedly stuffed the potato chips into his mouth, finished them in 2 bites, and crossed his arms, waiting for something in the distance to come over. Han Fei could not see, but he could hear the sound of fishes leaping out of the water. To be able to cause such a commotion, it had to be a large ship. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At the same time, Han Fei looked around and found a large number of yellow-winged flying insects flying around, and some even landed on him. However, when Han Fei shook his spiritual energy and killed a large number of them, not many yellow-winged flying insects flew to him. Woo-woo, walala, the sea was surging, and the waves were rising and falling. Han Fei sensed that the ghost ferryman under the boat was no longer exerting force, and the boat naturally stopped. Immediately afterward, after about 10 minutes, Han Fei saw a huge wooden boat passing by. This is a dragon boat? Although this big ship had decayed, Han Fei could still see it. To be precise, he recognized the interlocking spirit-gathering formation on the wooden board. Although a large portion of the spirit-gathering formation had been destroyed, traces of the carvings were still there. Xiao! Han Fei swung the rod and felt the hook fall on the dragon boat, so he stepped on the hull and jumped up. Bam! When Han Fei landed on the deck of the dragon boat, he frowned. The first thing he saw was an incomplete skeleton on the deck not far from him. Han Fei didn't move but looked up to the sky and shouted, "Zhang Xuanyu." Han Fei's voice spread very far, but it could still be heard dozens of kilometers away. He didn't expect to find Zhang Xuanyu so soon. But where was this guy most likely to go? That was definitely on this dragon boat. Clatter! Kacha! Han Fei heard the sound of wood breaking, followed by the sound of footsteps, and knew that someone was coming. Sure enough, there are still people alive. Han Fei couldn't help but be a little curious. How did these people survive? By rights, they should have nothing to eat. Did he guess wrong? Was that little blue fish really edible? No way. If he guessed right, that little blue fish shouldn't be edible. Zhang Xuanyu, Han Fei shouted again without any scruples. He didn't believe that in this sea area, on this dragon boat, there would be an existence stronger than him. He had abundant spiritual energy, and his strength was at its peak. Even a hanging fisher wouldn't dare to say that he could kill him, let alone a dragon boat that had disappeared in the abyssal chasm for decades. For a time, all kinds of strange sounds rang out. Han Fei was walking forward along the deck. After walking less than 500 meters, he saw a woman with disheveled hair standing in front of him. Han Fei couldn't see the woman's appearance clearly, but she looked thin and bony, and even her shoes were broken, and half of her feet were exposed. When he saw the sole of her foot, Han Fei frowned. Only skin and bones were left. Is this person still alive? Han Fei didn't stop but continued to walk forward. Girl, do you mind being my guide? However, when the woman raised her face, Han Fei almost cursed out loud. Was that a human face? It was equivalent to a skeleton. There was no flesh on her face. There was only skin left. But in this woman's eyes, there was still blue light. When she bared her teeth, Han Fei saw those blue teeth and he was shocked. Did these people really eat the blue fish? Han Fei frowned. He should have guessed it. Eliminating all the impossible, the remaining answer, no matter how impossible, was the answer. Only the blue fish could be eaten here. Since these people survived, they must have eaten a lot. Although the answer seemed to be a little different from the one he guessed, the result was almost the same. Han Fei wasn't sure if this person was crazy or not. Han Fei flicked out a yellow-blooded sea cucumber potato chip. The woman, who was still looking at Han Fei, pounced on it and bit it in her mouth when she saw the chip. Immediately afterward, the woman trembled all over, and Han Fei saw a flash of spiritual energy on her body. Bam! The woman immediately rushed over. The nails on her hands had already fallen off, and her fingers were all white. However, even in this state, this woman still knew how to use combat skills. At the moment when she was about to touch Han Fei, a dagger strangely appeared at Han Fei's chin. Han Fei tilted his head slightly, and a blue sea wandering dragon dagger appeared in his hand. With a casual slap, he pushed her back dozens of steps. Then, with a cold face, Han Fei threw out another chip. "Girl, are you still normal? Can you talk?" Seeing that Han Fei was difficult to deal with, the woman pounced on the chip again. Han Fei confirmed that 2 yellow-blooded sea cucumber potato chips were definitely worth the energy contained in dozens of blue fish. The spiritual energy on this woman emerged again. This time, Han Fei clearly saw that the wrinkled skin on her body was slightly better. Seeing this scene, Han Fei's eyes lit up. This person seemed to be a little conscious. Swish, swish. Han Fei flicked out 3 more chips, all of which were quickly bitten by the woman. The speed was so fast that Han Fei was a little dumbfounded. This didn't look like an action that a skinny woman could do. Then Han Fei pointed his finger, and a wisp of spiritual energy poured directly into the woman's body. At the next moment, the skin on the woman's fingers was growing rapidly, and the flesh and blood of her body were also growing rapidly. Then Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on her again. The woman trembled all over and let out an "th." Han Fei took a long breath. "You can still make a sound. It seems that you still have a chance to recover." The woman looked at Han Fei with difficulty, and a glimmer of light flashed in her dry eyes. Go, huh? Han Fei continued to throw 2 more chips to her, then tilted his head and leaned sideways, and a figure immediately pounced over. Han Fei didn't make a move. These people were already so pitiful. He wouldn't kill them at this time. However, although Han Fei didn't make a move, the woman just now did. The woman, who had recovered a little energy, seemed to have a little combat power. She turned over her hand and stabbed the knife into the heart of the figure that pounced over. Han Fei frowned. "Why did you kill it?" However, the woman said with difficulty, "Eat." The 3rd chapter? Asking for votes. The author said, designed according to a real unsolved mystery, the truth is unknown. End of this chapter. Chapter 489. Han Fei looked at the skinny man whose heart was pierced by the woman and couldn't help frowning. "Do you mean cannibalism?" Although Han Fei often said that he cooked people and ate them when he and Xia Xiaochan pretended to be the black and white ghosts, that was just an act after all. But at this moment, when Han Fei heard that these people really ate people, he suddenly felt creeped out. No wonder, when I first boarded the boat, the corpse I saw was incomplete. It turns out, Han Fei heard the sounds around him getting more and more intense, and many people seemed to be running wildly. He didn't know if the woman had regained a little consciousness, but she seemed to have been struggling. However, when the footsteps of other people became clearer and clearer, the woman suddenly rushed towards Han Fei. Han Fei was considering whether to attack. This woman's strength was roughly around that of a junior dangling fisher, and he had just given her some potato chips. She couldn't hurt him, so Han Fei didn't attack her. The woman suddenly pulled Han Fei up and ran into a door on the side of the dragon boat. Han Fei hadn't considered whether to follow this woman or not. However, seeing that she didn't seem to be a bad person, he didn't break free. The two of them turned all the way and soon ran to a staircase inside the cabin on the first floor. However, 3 skinny people rushed towards them. One of them was also a woman, missing an arm. At this moment, when the 3 of them saw Han Fei, they subconsciously took out their weapons. Although they seemed to be crazy now, their fighting instincts were still there. Besides, this place would only make people hungry, but there was no shortage of spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Therefore, when fighting, these people could also burst out their spiritual energy. The woman holding Han Fei's hand roared at the 3 of them. At the same time, dozens of knife lights flashed out from the dagger in her hand. Unfortunately, her strength had recovered too little, so she was no match for these 3 people at all. Seeing this, Han Fei casually punched out. The golden fist mark exploded in the air, directly shaking the 3 people on the opposite side away. Han Fei didn't kill them but simply shook them away. However, the running sound behind them became more and more intense, a large amount of debris was knocked over, and roars sounded one after another. Seeing this situation, Han Fei couldn't help but be a little speechless. "If you're on this ship, at least give me a response." The woman pulled Han Fei in horror and continued to run up. However, there were more and more people coming from all directions. When they reached the middle of the second floor of the dragon boat, there were no less than hundreds of people surrounding them. Han Fei frowned slightly, waved his hand, and threw over 100 potato chips. These people went crazy when they saw the food. Roar! Bang! Bang! These people collided with each other and fought with each other. How much energy did the yellow-blooded sea cucumber contain? They were all from the level 3 fishery, so of course they could feel it. Han Fei was a little regretful. These people were fighting and killing each other. They couldn't help but fight for food. Those who didn't grab it rushed at Han Fei again. Boom, boom, boom. Han Fei's fists glowed with golden light, and he punched them away one by one. Then, he grabbed the woman with one hand and ran, asking, "Where are you taking me? To the top floor?" Han Fei's speed was much faster than this woman's, and he didn't know how many people he had punched away. Anyway, when Han Fei just stepped on the 3rd floor of the cabin, he didn't run into the cabin, but ran to the deck. Boom! The outer wall of the dragon boat was directly punched out by Han Fei. Han Fei roared, "Zhang Xuanyu, get the fuck out of here. Either you shout and I'll come to you, or you come to the top floor to find me." Then Han Fei waved his hand and threw the fishing rod up. Before he went up, Han Fei suddenly felt a pain in his arm. He looked down, only to see that the woman he was carrying was biting his forearm and seemed to have lost her mind again. Damn it, Han Fei was speechless. "Do you think your teeth are ultra-quality spiritual energy? Do you want to eat me?" Swish. Swish, Han Fei soon came to the top of the dragon boat. And this woman had already started to attack Han Fei, and the dagger had been stabbed into his chest. Bam! Han Fei's spiritual energy shook and shook her away. Then, he handed over 2 pieces of potato chips. "Do you want to eat? You tell me. Why do you have to eat?" Han Fei felt that he could save this woman first. At that time, the situation on this dragon boat should be clear. After eating 2 pieces of potato chips, the woman struggled again. But this time, Han Fei took out dozens of potato chips and gave them to her. "If you want to eat, I have plenty of them. Just tell me." The woman seemed to be in pain. Her whole body was trembling, and then she knelt on the ground. Han Fei saw that her flesh and blood were recovering. Although she was still thin, there was a small circle of flesh on her body. Me. Seeing that she could speak again, Han Fei threw dozens of potato chips at once. The woman's reaction was obviously a lot faster. She stuffed all 10 chips into her mouth in one go, almost as if she was stuffing them. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei was a little annoyed. The energy in this woman's body was rolling, and her flesh and blood were recovering. However, someone had already come at this moment. Swish! Swish! This time, a battle bow shot over, and a big sword swept across the sky. Comparable to an advanced dangling fisher? So powerful? In the mist, Han Fei easily blocked the spiritual energy arrows and the big sword in the sky, and then suddenly shouted, "Get out!" There is still a conscious person on this boat, isn't there? However, there was only sound around, and no one was in sight. Han Fei's face changed slightly. Those people were just testing him just now. This trick at least showed that there were indeed people who were not crazy. Han Fei grinned. You don't want to come? Han Fei took out a large pot and began to stir-fry sea cucumbers. When the rich fragrance began to spread on the top floor of the dragon boat, there were roars one after another. The woman who was saved by Han Fei was stunned at this moment. Although her flesh and blood were still recovering, her instinct made her rush towards Han Fei. However, Han Fei snorted coldly. So, Han Fei's eyes turned cold. I can give it to you, but you can't take it, let alone lead the way. The woman was frightened by Han Fei's eyes. She knew that Han Fei was strong and she couldn't beat him. Besides, at this moment, she had recovered a little. Although she really wanted to eat, she still held back and just stared at the pot. Han Fei said loudly, Everyone who is not crazy, listen to me. If you want to eat, you can. Come out and talk to me. Hiss, hiss. Han Fei heard that many people around seemed to want to rush over, but they were stunned by the roars. After a while, Han Fei saw a thin man walk out of the mist. This man's eyes were not cloudy. Although he looked sallow and muscular and extremely malnourished, he was still rational. Brother, I want to talk to you. This voice was extremely hoarse, as if there was a mouthful of phlegm stuck in his throat. Han Fei went straight to the point. Have there been any new people on the dragon boat recently? Yes, there are 13, 9 of whom are dead. Han Fei asked, Where are the dead people? Where are the living people? The thin man was silent for a while. You should know the dead people. As for the living, they are at the bottom. Han Fei frowned. The bottom? The thin man nodded. The bottom, where the dragon boat used to raise contractual spiritual beasts. Some people have seals on them, blocking that area. But what? The thin man shook his head. But their seals won't last long. In 3 days at most, the seals will be broken. Han Fei's eyes flashed. How did you survive? How long have you lived? The lean man raised his head and glanced at Han Fei. I have been here for 4 months. You don't want to know how I survived. Then the man looked at the woman Han Fei saved and shook his head. You can't save her. Although her flesh and blood are recovering, she has gone crazy. Even if she can occasionally regain her consciousness, it won't last long. She can't recover if she doesn't get out of here. Even if she gets out of here, she may not recover. Han Fei glanced at the woman, only to find that her eyes were still staring at the big pot, and saliva was flowing from the corner of her mouth. There was fanaticism, pain, and struggle in her eyes. Han Fei frowned. How many people are on this dragon boat? The thin man shook his head slightly. I don't know, thousands of people, there should be. Chapter 490. When Han Fei heard the number of thousands of people, he was very shocked. He asked subconsciously, So many? Many? The lean man looked back with difficulty. When this dragon boat came in, there were 180,000 people on board. Do you know how many of those people are left? 21. Han Fei took a deep breath. He quickly recalled the time when this dragon boat came in. It seemed to have been 15 years of history. Han Fei couldn't help but be amazed. What on earth had these people experienced to survive for 15 years in this environment? Han Fei threw the cauldron, and a large pot of yellow-blooded sea cucumber wrapped in seawater flew to the lean man. Take me to the bottom of the boat. The lean man immediately caught it with his sea-swallowing seashell and then roared. Immediately afterward, Han Fei saw one thin man and woman after another coming up to share the food. The lean man said shamefully, Sorry, I can't take you to the bottom of the boat. We will all die. Han Fei frowned. However, before he asked in detail, he saw a strange scene. To Han Fei's surprise, these people didn't panic at all. However, many people were missing an arm. Everyone grabbed a piece of yellow-blooded sea cucumber in an orderly manner and then took a bite. Even though they were reluctant to do so, they still only took a bite. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. The lean man smiled bitterly. If you want to survive, you have to follow the rules and be united. Those who don't follow the rules and are not united have either been eaten, lost, jumped off the boat to escape, or become lunatics. Han Fei sighed. Don't you eat the little blue fish? The lean man nodded. We eat it, but we won't eat it crazily. That's courting death. Although Han Fei wanted to know this story, obviously, it would be very long and he had no time to listen to it. Han Fei looked at the woman who was still struggling and asked, What will you do to her? The lean man glanced at her and said, She has eaten too many small blue fish. We need to tie her up. We need to tie her up and wait for her to recover by her own will. If she can't recover, she will still be banished to the 4th floor. Han Fei took a breath and ignored this woman. There must be a reason why they did this. Han Fei put away the cauldron and turned to leave. After taking a few steps, he suddenly turned around and asked, Hey, what's your name? Xiao Sei. When he said the name, the lean man looked up at the sky and said, I don't recommend you go to the bottom. Someone has already mutated and turned into a monster. Han Fei smiled. Monster. Han Fei jumped down from the top of the cabin on the 5th floor. Bang. As soon as Han Fei landed, he smashed a big hole in the deck. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei pushed back a dozen skinny guys and entered the trading market on the 1st underground floor. However, the current trading market was extremely strange. The various stalls inside had long been destroyed, and some shops had long been opened. Dried bones, tattered clothes, shattered wood, and scattered weapons could be seen on the streets at any time. 10 seconds after Han Fei came in, he saw a pair of blue eyes in a store. Bang! The blue eyes pulled open a broken plank and rushed at Han Fei. When Han Fei saw his appearance clearly, he was surprised to find that this person had turned light blue all over, the hair on his head had disappeared, his hands had turned into sharp claws, and his teeth were as sharp as piranhas' teeth. Damn it! Why the hell did you run to the bottom of the dragon boat? Why did you run to the bottom of the dragon boat? On the dragon boat, in a dark corner, the water was splashing. There were several water exchange openings where seawater was flowing in and out. And at the corner of the water cabin, there was a small viewing platform. In the past, this was built for people to choose contractual spiritual beasts, and the area was less than 50 square meters. There were many platforms like this. And on this 50 square meter platform, 3 people were sitting here feebly, and one was lying on the ground, curled up into a ball. Around them was a weird net-shaped seal. Outside the seal, weird blue mutant humans bumped into the seal from time to time. Boom, boom, boom. Among them, a woman smiled bitterly and said, We are really unlucky. If we had known that we were doomed to die, we might as well have fought with them at the beginning. Next to her, a man laughed. Anyway, we are doomed. We have done something great. I am satisfied that we can break through the flowstone pit. The woman glanced at the person lying on the ground, and then looked at a handsome young man with delicate features. Zhang Xuanyu, we are all going to die. Why don't we throw old Wang out and have some alone time for a few days? The handsome young man didn't speak, but the man next to him said angrily, Sun Ruoruo, do you want me to die earlier? The girl called Sun Ruoruo stroked her hair, revealing a rather beautiful little face. She said, Before, I have been busy with cultivation, just to become stronger, and I have no time to fall in love. But after entering the level 3 fishery, I was caught by the flowstone pit and had no chance to fall in love. I am going to die. Can't you help me? Zhang Xuanyu said weakly, Shut up, all of you. Wang Baiyan, why do I feel that your voice is full of energy? Why don't you eat less later? The man's face stiffened. That's impossible. Do you too have the heart to watch me starve to death? Zhang Xuanyu kicked the man's foot. You should have died a long time ago. If it weren't for you, how could I have broken into this damn place? Then Zhang Xuanyu glanced at Sun Ruoruo. If we were in another place, I would definitely communicate with you in depth. But now, I am so hungry that my chest is sticking to my back. How can I fall in love with you? Sun Ruoruo giggled with difficulty. If we don't fall in love, we can kiss. Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes. I'm afraid that I can't help but bite hard and eat your lips. Sun Ruoruo, ah. Zhang Xuanyu struggled to prop himself up with his hands and cursed, I'm a genius after all. I can even dig out a big opportunity in a place like the Flowstone Pit. But now, I am going to starve to death. This is fucking ridiculous. With that, Zhang Xuanyu took out a crab more than 3 meters long from his sea-swallowing seashell. Brother, why do you still have food? Wang Baiwan immediately said, Lu Fenfang, get up. There's food. Gulp. The guy lying on the ground had the skin on his face and stomach drooping. It could be seen that he was very fat before, but now he was so hungry that even his skin was drooping. Zhang Xuanyu moved his body. This is my fucking last food. If I finish it, there will be no more. Sun Ruoruo screamed, This is the 6th time you have said this. Every time we think we are going to die, you can take out a creature. I really want to grab your sea-swallowing seashell and have a look. Wang Baiwan happily pulled off a crab leg and knocked it with a stick. Lu Fenfang, who was supposed to have fainted from hunger, somehow found the strength to break open the crab shell and suck a big mouthful of the crab roe. Zhang Xuanyu cursed, Slow down. This is indeed the last bit of food. When the seal is broken, let's fight our way out. Lu Fenfang said in a hoarse voice, Zhang Xuanyu, I admit that you are awesome. But this is the abyssal chasm. Hundreds of thousands of people on the dragon boats have died. Do you think we can survive being trapped here? Zhang Xuanyu scoffed. You are still fucking alive, aren't you? As long as you are alive, there is a chance to survive. Who knew that this spirit absorption array would be so broken? Otherwise, we would definitely be able to catch some normal creatures. Huh! While they were peeling the crabs, the blue mutants nearby roared and ran away. Wang Baiwan exclaimed, Huh? Have they abandoned us? Sun Ruoruo said, Impossible. They must have gone to kill each other. Zhang Xuanyu was sucking the crab roe and didn't care about the movement at all. He said, You may not believe it, but I have a brother. I have a brother. Any living creature in the world is a delicacy in his hands. This crab, I'm not bragging, but he can make 108 different patterns, and none of them are the same. I prepared more food in my sea-swallowing seashell because of him. Bam! As soon as Zhang Xuanyu bragged, a blue mutant hit the seal with a loud bang, causing the seal to shake several times. Zhang Xuanyu screamed, Fuck, what a great force! Hurry up and eat. The seal is about to be broken. The 4 of them hurriedly stuck their heads into the crab shell and began to crazily swallow the crab roe. However, just when the 4 of them were swallowing crab roe crazily, crunch, accompanied by a crisp chewing sound, a lazy voice sounded. Oh. When I was not here, did you eat this raw every day? You didn't even prepare a pot? How could you eat it? Zhang Xuanyu's body suddenly stiffened and then began to tremble. After a full 10 breaths of time, he finally turned his head back with great difficulty. His tears almost fell from his eyes. Howl. Feifei, I'm starving. Chapter 491. When he saw Zhang Xuanyu, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Zhang Xuanyu was still on this dragon boat. If this stupid guy insisted on going to the ocean alone, Han Fei really didn't know where to look for him. To be honest, Han Fei really didn't know that Zhang Xuanyu must be on the dragon boat. However, as long as he came here with a small boat, where could he go if he didn't get on the dragon boat? Therefore, he felt that Zhang Xuanyu was most likely on the dragon boat. At this moment, this guy stopped eating crabs and the crab roe in his mouth fell out. With a swish, Zhang Xuanyu removed the seal and wanted to give Han Fei a bear hug. Han Fei quickly dodged and kicked him in disgust. Go away. I don't want to hug a salivating bastard. Ha, ha, Zhang Xuanyu laughed out loud. No one was more excited than him. Anyway, Sun Ruoruo and the other 2 were dumbfounded. Zhang Xuanyu hammered Han Fei's chest fiercely. Fei, let me tell you, if you didn't come, I would have gone out to fight. Han Fei sneered. Fight? Ironhead fish? Do you want to eat the blue fish? Be careful. While Han Fei was laughing, he heard Wang Baiwan's warning. However, Han Fei punched out without looking back. As spiritual energy gushed out, 7 or 8 blue mutant humans were directly sent flying and rolled several times on the ground. Han Fei grinned. You know how to seal people? Zhang Xuanyu looked at the mutant humans that were rushing over in surprise and said in astonishment, Did you fight your way here? Han Fei snorted. Of course. I called you outside but you couldn't hear me, so I had to fight my way in. I also heard from someone on the top floor that a dozen people went to the bottom floor after boarding the boat. Zhang Xuanyu hurriedly pulled Han Fei over, and then waved his hand and a seal surrounded them. Come on, my good brother, get something to eat first. I've already eaten a fish. Sun Ruoruo and the others quickly made way and looked at Han Fei in shock. Until now, they were all dumbfounded. Who the hell knew that someone would suddenly appear out of nowhere? Why did this person come to such a large fishery? Sun Ruoruo pulled Zhang Xuanyu, looked at Han Fei and asked cautiously, Who is it? Zhang Xuanyu's face immediately turned red. My brother Han Fei. Han Fei also looked at them curiously, and Zhang Xuanyu introduced them one by one. Sun Ruoruo, Wang Baiwan, Lu Fenfang. There were many people, but now only the 4 of us are left. Han Fei nodded slightly. I see. Look at you guys, you only have 20 to 30% of your strength left. Does it feel good? Is there something wrong with your brain? Why would you run to the abyssal chasm? Zhang Xuanyu said helplessly, Then I have to find a chance to run somewhere else. Gulp. Lu Fenfang's stomach growled, but she quickly glanced at the big crab on the ground. Before he pounced on it to eat, Han Fei kicked the raw crab out of the seal with one foot. In an instant, a large group of blue mutants pounced forward. Almost instantly, the big crab was dismembered. Even the juices on the ground were licked by a group of people. Hey, you're the only food we have. The faces of Sun Ruoruo and the others changed, and they immediately looked at Han Fei with a trace of murderous intent. Han Fei said with a faint smile, Who can tell me, can this thing be eaten raw? Sun Ruoruo's little face turned cold. Do you know how precious food is here? Zhang Xuanyu scratched his head awkwardly, chuckled, and didn't speak. He just sat on the ground and reached out to Han Fei. Han Fei threw his hand, and a pile of yellow-blooded sea cucumber potato chips flew to them. The corners of Zhang Xuanyu's mouth curled up. What kind of eating method is this? How can you still have time to study dishes here? Han Fei sneered. Do you think I am like you? Crunch. Sun Ruoruo and the other 2, who were still murderous just now, were now crazily stuffing potato chips into their mouths, for fear that they would be gone if they didn't do it quickly. Han Fei unhurriedly took out the cauldron and grabbed a yellow-blooded sea cucumber and dozens of seasonings. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they saw this. Wow! Lu Fenfang exclaimed, Yellow-blooded sea cucumber, this thing is full of energy. Wang Baiwan's body stiffened, and Han Fei felt that this guy would shed tears of happiness at any time. Gulp. I'm sure I'm not dreaming, right? Sun Ruoruo sat directly on the ground, her legs facing backward, and she couldn't wait to hold this yellow-blooded sea cucumber in her arms. Only Zhang Xuanyu scratched his head. Why don't you do it? Crunch. Han Fei chewed a potato chip, and the blood-drinking knife automatically floated in the air, and then he cut it. The fish oil was poured into the pot, and after a moment, the seasonings rolled into the oil, making a sizzling sound. In the ears of these people, it was simply the most beautiful music in the world. Before the yellow-blooded sea cucumber entered the pot, its fragrance was already overflowing. The strong smell made Sun Ruoruo and the others burst into tears. When the yellow-blooded sea cucumber was cut into sections and put into the pot, the flames soared into the sky. With a whoosh, Han Fei began to cook. Gulp. Sun Ruoruo cried, this time for real. Brother, you will be my brother from now on. Lu Fenfang hugged Han Fei's thigh. Brother, don't say anything. My life will be yours from now on. Wang Baiwan drooled and couldn't move his eyes away. Only Zhang Xuanyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Look at you guys. Look at me. Am I crying? Am I panicking? I'm not panicking at all. I'm very calm. Han Fei said contemptuously, Zhang Xuanyu, don't stretch your claws into my pot. Then, of course, it was a gluttonous feast. Of course, it would be better if there weren't so many blue mutants outside the seal. Zhang Xuanyu and the other three had already become gluttonous. Image? Before filling his stomach, Image was all fish shit. Han Fei just ate 2 pieces symbolically and then stopped eating. Occasionally, he stuffed a chip in his mouth and watched the 4 of them devour these yellow-blooded sea cucumbers. Only halfway through, the 4 of them exuded surging energy. Their faces were all red and their physiques were recovering at an extremely fast speed. Unfortunately, Sun Ruoro and the other 2 were too weak, and the strongest, Wang Baiwan, was only a peak-level dangling fisher. The weakest, Sun Ruoro, was only an intermediate dangling fisher. However, to Han Fei's surprise, Zhang Xuanyu was still eating. Even if the energy was surging, he didn't stop eating. You are about to break through to an advanced dangling fisher at any time. Zhang Xuanyu said, what do you think? If it weren't for this damn place, I would have broken through long ago. However, Zhang Xuanyu's physique was still incomparable to Han Fei's. Even if the 4 of them ate a yellow-blooded sea cucumber, there would still be 1/3 left. These people all ate it with their hands. Who knew if there was saliva or something dirty in the pot? Han Fei said disdainfully, whoever finishes last will wash the pot. Wash the pot? Lu Fenfang and the other 2 looked at Han Fei in astonishment. Han Fei blinked and said, I don't eat leftovers. Are you going to throw it away? Sun Ruoro suddenly stood up and looked at Han Fei in shock. Zhang Xuanyu was speechless. Sit down. You can stuff the rest into your own sea-swallowing seashells. Huh? Can I? Han Fei waved his hand and said, take it. I still have a lot more. When they heard this, they were surprised. Who the hell would come to the level 3 fishery and put so much seafood in their sea-swallowing seashells? The sea-swallowing seashells were so small. Shouldn't they be storing treasures? Seeing that their flesh and blood were growing and they were recovering quickly, Han Fei asked, what happened? I only knew that you had an accident in the flowstone pit. I was going to save you, but you broke into the abyssal chasm. So, I went to find Xia Xiaochan first. Zhang Xuanyu smiled bitterly. I was too unlucky. After listening to Zhang Xuanyu for a long time, Han Fei learned that the flowstone pit had always been the source of mineral deposits for the dragon boat. But a huge mine had to be dug, right? Therefore, some people had to do this. Unfortunately, Zhang Xuanyu came to this place at the beginning. However, this guy dug out an opportunity from the flowstone pit. Because there were others here, Zhang Xuanyu only said it was about the opportunity of sealing techniques and combat techniques. Han Fei didn't ask much. Only then did Han Fei learn that Zhang Xuanyu didn't resist with dozens of people at all, but with more than 600 people. In that battle, nearly 400 people were killed on the spot, and the flowstone pit was stained with blood. More than 30 peak-level dangling fishers were killed. However, the dragon boat didn't make it public, so the news that the outside world learned was just a small incident and didn't attract much attention. Later, Zhang Xuanyu and the others fought and retreated, and those who survived in the end were all masters. Unfortunately, no matter how strong they were, they couldn't resist the pursuit of a group of peak-level dangling fishers. So, they could only hide in the abyssal chasm. When everything was over, Zhang Xuanyu smiled and said, thank you. I can finally go out. However, Han Fei shook his head and said, you can go out. I'm just passing by. Are you kidding me? Why are you passing by? Han Fei said seriously, I was really passing by and saved you by the way. I have to go deeper. Chapter 492. Zhang Xuanyu was stunned. Wang Baiwan and the other 2 were also dumbfounded. You still want to continue to explore such a place? Are you fucking risking your life? Han Fei said to Zhang Xuanyu via voice transmission, I have to go. Zhang Xuanyu's face turned serious. I will go with you. Sun Ruoro exclaimed, are you crazy? Zhang Xuanyu smiled. What are you afraid of? If I was afraid, I would have died long ago. Han Fei shook his head. No, if you have a way, take these people out. Zhang Xuanyu's face changed slightly. Don't. I can't promise you that. I didn't see you, but you are in front of me. How can I let you go in? Han Fei wondered. It seems that it is more dangerous inside. Isn't the biggest danger of the abyssal chasm that the energy will dissipate? Zhang Xuanyu shook his head slightly. The direct reason why so many people died in the abyssal chasm was indeed because of the dissipation of energy. On the way back, there will be a section of the sea where fishing boats can't be operated. But I think if this is the case, there will definitely be many heavenly talents who can go out alive. As long as they are ruthless enough, they can swim out. Han Fei's heart did a flip. When the dragon boats came in, there were 180,000 people. Besides, there should be no shortage of food on the dragon boats. Why didn't these people go out? Besides, wasn't there a section of the sea where fishing boats couldn't sail? Then, how did the dragon boats pass through that section of the sea? Han Fei suddenly found that he was far from understanding the horrors here. Come to think of it, there should be an even greater crisis ahead. Han Fei smiled and said, let's go out of here first. By the way, can these blue guys be saved? Zhang Xuanyu shook his head. There is no way. Those people above the fish cabins on the first floor may be saved, but the people below the fish cabins are almost hopeless. Wang Baiwan sighed. Brother Han, you haven't seen them killing and eating each other. They can no longer be called human beings. Han Fei wondered, why don't they eat the blue fish? Lu Fenfen rubbed her belly, which was no longer loose, and said, it's because they ate the blue fish. It wasn't that the little blue fish couldn't be eaten, but it couldn't be eaten without restraint. If one ate too many of these small blue fish, they would become more and more lost in the future. In the end, they didn't know how to fish at all, so naturally, they couldn't catch the little blue fish. They killed each other. Han Fei took a deep breath. Damn it. Let's go to the first floor. I think those on the first floor and above can still be saved. It was not that Han Fei was overflowing with sympathy, but that these people were actually innocent, unlike those he met before, who all wanted to kill him. Some of these people had already lost themselves. Most of them had gone mad. In Han Fei's opinion, people could die in battle, loot, or be eaten by fish, but they shouldn't starve to death like this. Since the four of them had recovered to their peak state, they were no longer afraid of going out. After all, whether it was the blue mutant or the people on the first floor or above, they no longer had a tenth of their original strength. Any one of the five of them could easily kill those people. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, is there anything weird on this floor? Sun Roro suddenly said, yes. Wang Baiwan said, you must have seen it wrong. Lu Fenfang said, Roro, don't argue. You are the only one among the four of us who saw it. And after such a long time, the thing you mentioned didn't come to us, which means that it doesn't exist at all. You must have been hallucinating at that time. Zhang Xuanyu nodded. We can't rule out the possibility that that thing exists. Han Fei wondered, what are you talking about? Sun Roro hurriedly said, it's a monster. At that time, we were chased and came down from above. We wanted to activate the spirit absorption array of the dragon boat. I saw a monster in the water where contractual spiritual beasts were raised. It was a monster with a human face, and it was smiling at me. Han Fei couldn't help but exclaim, now that you mention it, it sounds very scary. Sun Ruoro was speechless. It is scary. The place where we are now is also very scary. Han Fei frowned slightly, remembering what Xiao Sei told him about the danger under the boat. But he didn't encounter any danger all the way down. Besides, he thought that even if he encountered danger, he shouldn't be afraid. Han Fei smiled. Let's go. If there is really danger, they won't let us go out. But if we go out, whatever danger there is down there will have nothing to do with us. Zhang Xuanyu nodded, carrying a mid-quality spiritual rod. Let's go out. Han Fei curled his lips. Shoot, why are you still using mid-quality spiritual weapons? Zhang Xuanyu? Han Fei threw a high-quality spiritual rod and a high-quality battle suit at him. I don't have time now. I'll get you an ultra-quality one later. Zhang Xuanyu was dumbfounded. Is it so simple? Do you think I can get it just like that? Wang Baiwan and the other two swallowed. Damn, he's so rich. How could he casually throw a high-quality spiritual weapon? But this was not the time to ask. They had to get out of here first. Han Fei chuckled. Have you ever taken their sea-swallowing seashells? Zhang Xuanyu nodded. Of course I have. It's just that most of these people were not strong when they were alive, and there was nothing good in their sea-swallowing seashells. I suspect that when the people on the dragon boats were still alive, they exchanged their treasures with others for food. So, don't expect to find anything good in their sea-swallowing seashells. Han Fei thought about it and found it made sense. Who would guard their sea-swallowing seashells when they were about to die? Roar, hoo! As soon as the seal was lifted, Han Fei's fists glowed with golden light and were as fast as the wind. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people who approached were blown away by Han Fei. Boom, boom, boom. Han Fei broke the triple barrier with a punch, and a huge gust of wind swept past. Wherever the fist wind reached, people were sent flying. Wow! Lu Fengfang and the other two looked at each other. So fierce, so fierce. Zhang Xuanyu was also shocked. Fei, when did you learn boxing? Why didn't I know? Han Fei sneered. You were locked in the flowstone pit as soon as you showed up. It would be strange if you didn't know. Zhang Xuanyu frowned. No. I saw that you were on the wanted list. But I didn't have time to pay attention to this at that time. Where did you go later? Han Fei said lightly, after the sea grassland, I went to the undersea city to find Xia Shaochan. Then we explored the steps into the sea together. So, after you go out, don't go to these places. Hurry up and find your opportunity. Zhang Xuanyu gnashed his teeth and said, Asshole, I regret it. I hate that I am not outside. Otherwise, I will be on the wanted list. Han Fei chuckled. Do you think you are not on the list? Xia Shaochan and I are on the wanted list. Although your name is not on it, do you dare to go to a crowded place openly? I will definitely catch you as soon as you show up. Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes. Isn't it because of you two? Han Fei chatted with Zhang Xuanyu while fighting. Wang Baiwan and the other two were all dumbfounded. Isn't Zhang Xuanyu's brother a bit too awesome? And he is also on the wanted list? Just when Han Fei and Zhang Xuanyu were chatting, Han Fei's face suddenly changed. He moved his feet and punched out like a dragon, and a golden fist shadow blasted into the mist. Bam! Gotcha! The wooden planks were cracking and the mist was drifting away. Han Fei saw a big tail appear, swinging at him again. Humph! I'll kill you! The blood-drinking knife swept all the way, and the deck was shattered wherever it passed. The mist was split into two halves, forming two mist vortexes. Puff! A tail several meters long rolled under everyone's feet. However, in the blink of an eye, Han Fei had already caught up with it. Zhang Xuanyu's body trembled. So fucking strong. How many opportunities did this bastard get? How did he become so strong? Han Fei took the lead, only to see a black figure jumping through the mist. Where are you going? Come back. Swish. 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 The blue sea wandering dragon daggers swept out crazily. Han Fei didn't need to know where that thing was at all. He didn't believe that no matter how fast it was, it could be faster than his daggers. Squeak. But the next scene shocked Han Fei. He heard a baby's cry. Swish. 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 The blue sea wandering dragon daggers sank into his body, and Han Fei turned around and shouted to Zhang Xuanyu, Seal yourself. Zhang Xuanyu said, Seal my ass. My strength has been restored. Let's do it. Han Fei smiled and said, Okay, then go do it. That thing ran very fast. I couldn't catch up with it. Sun Ruoruo hurriedly ran over. I knew it. I'm not mistaken, there really is something. Han Fei put away the blood-drinking knife. More than one. Chapter 493. The fog itself was a very strange atmosphere, and in this fog, there were many unknowns. Especially that cry that sounded like a baby's cry. In a place like this, it gave people goosebumps. Han Fei frowned slightly and said, "Did you find anything different?" Zhang Xuanyu smiled. "Of course. Since this thing came out, those blue mutants have disappeared. It seems that they are very afraid of this thing." Han Fei said, "Let's go. Go to the first floor. Don't worry about them. Kill them." None of the 5 people spoke and seemed to be listening. All Sun Roro and the other 2 could do was follow Han Fei and Zhang Xuanyu closely. There were actually 5 floors under the dragon boat, and Han Fei and the others were now on the bottom floor. However, because of Han Fei, a strong teammate, they moved very fast. It only took them half an hour to go up to the 3rd underground floor. This floor was also where the black market on the dragon boat was located. Many people who couldn't afford to live on the 1st floor could live here for free, which was also the dirtiest place in the entire dragon boat. When Han Fei just got on this floor, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head, and then a fat face was stuck in front of him. "Fuck you, boom." Han Fei was really taken aback and punched out. However, a large hole filled with fangs suddenly appeared below the human face. Han Fei punched out, only to be bitten by it. Zhang Xuanyu took a deep breath and unleashed the 9-layered waves with his cudgel. However, to their surprise, that thing actually turned into a cloud of fog and disappeared. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "It's fake." Han Fei and Zhang Xuanyu turned around in an instant, only to see Zhang Xuanyu suddenly hit out with his rod. Behind Lu Fenfang, a big mouth was directly picked up by Zhang Xuanyu. With a thought, Han Fei attached to the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, and the chain directly buckled over. Bam! The human-faced monster was directly thrown to the ground by Han Fei. Lu Fenfang was already scared out of his wits, and his forehead was full of cold sweat. He didn't feel anything at all. Just now, when Zhang Xuanyu attacked, he looked sideways and saw a big mouth like a black hole. He almost peed his pants. Lu Fenfang staggered. "Oh my god. Thank you, old Zhang and brother Han, for saving me." Zhang Xuanyu patted him on the shoulder, and Han Fei stared at the monster without speaking. A notification appeared in his eyes. Ghost Baby Salamander Introduction. After the deep-sea salamander devours a human, it will absorb the human's chaotic memories and form a soul-sucking ghost face. It can create an illusory body. Its speed was extremely fast, and its mouth was invincible. It could convert food into energy and store it in the void. Level 38 exotic quality contains spiritual energy 2584 points consumption induces delirium. Collectible ghost face absorbable. Han Fei grinned. This thing is so disgusting. It could even compete with the monstrous octopus. Zhang Xuanyu's face turned pale when he saw this guy. He shivered and had goosebumps all over his body. Sun Roro screamed directly, and a circle of seaweed wrapped around her body, subconsciously protecting herself. Lu Fenfang picked up the armor box and was about to smash it on the head. However, it was blocked by Han Fei's hand. Only Wang Baiwan said in surprise, "Dragon?" Yeah. The ghost baby salamander was struggling. However, everyone was staring at its body at this moment. This thing was more like a lizard, with a body composed of blue and black. On its head, which was its face, was the distorted face of a woman. At this moment, it was wriggling, which made everyone's stomach churn. Han Fei took a deep breath and said, "I can't tell you. You may not believe it, but this is an exotic creature. Are any of you interested in signing a contract with it?" Han Fei would never sign a contract with it. A monstrous octopus hanging in the demon purification pot was enough to give him a headache. Now, there was another disgusting salamander. It was absolutely impossible for him to accept it. Otherwise, during the next fusion, there was an 80% chance that a freak would be born. After all, there were 4 creatures hanging in the demon purification pot at this moment. Except for an iron wall lobster, none of the other 3 were normal. The mutant devilfish only had a layer of skin. The snake-tentacled shark-faced octopus was an all-round freak. The divine seaweed octopus was a big green fat sausage, which was also ugly. If there was another ghost baby salamander, did he want to have a third contractual spiritual beast? Zhang Xuanyu quickly waved his hand. No way. I don't want it. I don't want it. Sun Ruoruo cried. I don't want it either. Lu Fenfang cried. No, I feel dizzy when I see it now. But Wang Baiwan squatted on the ground. I want it. You want it? Even Han Fei exclaimed in disbelief. What a weird taste you have. You want it too? Wang Baiwan smiled and said, in any case, this thing is just a kind of creature. It's not its fault that it is ugly. Since it is so strong, why don't you want it? Han Fei turned his head. You can have it if you want. There should be more than one of this thing. You'd better hurry up. Without saying anything, Wang Baiwan began to sign a contract. Han Fei was staring at the mist in a daze, when suddenly an ethereal voice came to his ear. Tell me. Who is it? Han Fei suddenly scolded, giving the others a fright. Zhang Xuanyu quickly looked around. Fei, what's wrong? Han Fei stared at him. Did you hear someone crying for help just now? Crying for help? They looked at each other. It was so quiet that even a needle falling to the ground could be heard. Where did the cry for help come from? Seeing that they didn't seem to hear anything, Han Fei couldn't help but frown. When he tried to listen again, he could no longer hear the cry for help. This made Han Fei wonder if he had an auditory hallucination. After this ghost baby salamander was taken away by Wang Baiwan, they didn't see another ghost baby salamander appear, so they went straight to the first floor of the cabin. In the quiet environment of the third floor, there was finally a slight commotion. Hearing the commotion, everyone let out a sigh of relief. After all, it was definitely better to face those blue mutants who had gone completely crazy than to face these elusive ghost salamanders. Hiss! Han Fei cleared the way with his fists, and Zhang Xuanyu dragged the rod on the floor unscrupulously, not caring that it would be heard by those blue mutants. And the Wang Baiwan trio were no longer afraid because their strength had been restored. Seeing hundreds of blue mutants rushing over from all directions, Han Fei didn't need to worry about the surroundings anymore. They were directly knocked down by Wang Baiwan and the other two. The five of them went straight up, and after nearly half an hour, they finally came to the first floor of the deck. Zhang Xuanyu took a deep breath, stretched out, yawned, and said, "It's so comfortable. We're finally out." Lu Fenfang said, "It feels so good to be back on the deck." Sun Ruoruo looked around vigilantly. Don't forget, these people on the deck are not completely unconscious. They still have a little instinct, so they are much more powerful than the blue mutants. Han Fei looked up and said, "Let's go straight to the top of the ship." Zhang Xuanyu wondered, Have you seen Xiaosei? Han Fei said with a smile, "Otherwise, how would I know about you?" This dragon boat had no defensive barriers now, so it was very easy to go directly to the top of the ship from the first floor of the deck. They could easily get up with a fishing hook. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. Just now, he was even dragged away by that delirious woman. He was really stupid. However, as soon as they cast their fishing hooks, they heard a splash as if something had fallen into the sea. Han Fei was still puzzled and was about to go over to have a look, but he found that Zhang Xuanyu and the other three's faces suddenly changed. Han Fei knew that something bad had happened, and he immediately asked, "What do you mean? What fell into the sea?" Sun Ruoruo trembled a little and said, "People. They jumped into the sea." Han Fei wondered, aren't they courting death? Do they still expect to swim out at this time? Zhang Xuanyu shook his head slightly. They didn't swim out. These people simply jumped into the sea, sank, and finally died in the sea. Han Fei felt that his head had been struck by lightning, and he asked in astonishment, "Suicide?" Zhang Xuanyu nodded. In a sense, yes. Lu Fenfang's face was ugly. This is the consequence of eating the blue fish. Some people can resist with their own will at the beginning. As long as they are clear-minded, they will not jump into the sea. But once, Han Fei asked, "What?" Lu Fenfang sighed. Once they lose the hope of survival, or their desire to survive reaches a certain level, they will jump into the sea. No one knows why. Wang Baiwan sighed. You may not believe it, but when they jump, they all have a bright smile on their faces. Han Fei, damn, this is a typical ghost ship incident, almost exactly the same as my guess. Chapter 494. In fact, when Han Fei first saw the yellow-winged flying insect, he had a guess. But later, after boarding the dragon boat, Han Fei found that those people had just gone crazy and were still conscious, so he didn't continue to speculate and thought it was just a coincidence. Now it seemed that many coincidences in the world were not necessarily coincidences. Perhaps there was some unknown connection between them. For example, the reason why Han Fei calmed down when he saw the yellow-winged flying insect was because he knew a story. The story went like this. A family of 4 rented a cruise ship and went to the sea for fun. Later, due to an accident, the cruise ship sank. The family drifted on the sea for a long time and met a fishing boat. At that time, the family kept calling for help. But even though the boat was dozens of meters away, no one came to rescue them. Moreover, the deck was empty. They could only climb onto the fishing boat along the rope ladder. However, they found that there was no one on the boat, the steering equipment had been turned off, the table was covered with dust, and there was only a half-written nautical log. But according to the log, the time recorded on it was 27 years different from when the family boarded the boat. At the end of the last day of this log, the words, "Since leaving the port, everything has been smooth," were written. In the end, because the family had no food to eat, they could only think of fishing. However, fishing required bait, and they were surprised to find that there was a kind of purple flying insect on the surface of the sea. With the little flying insect as bait, they actually caught some small blue fish. At that time, they didn't think there was anything wrong with this small blue fish and even felt that it tasted extremely delicious. In his spare time, the owner also read this paragraph in the nautical log. After being bitten by a kind of purple flying insect, my whole body itched. I hated them, so I used them as bait and actually caught a kind of small blue fish that I had never seen before. It tasted unique and very delicious. However, when he got up the next morning, the owner found that the cabin door was opened and he found that his youngest son was missing. His search was fruitless and he was depressed. The next day, his eldest son disappeared again. The owner was afraid that his wife was also missing, so he didn't dare to sleep but pretended to be asleep. Sure enough, in the middle of the night, he found his wife in a state of sleepwalking. She came to the deck and said, "This is the most wonderful place in the world." Then she was about to jump into the sea. But fortunately, she was saved by the owner. Later, according to his wife, someone whispered in her ear, "Follow me, walk slowly, don't alarm the others." On the deck, his wife saw beautiful birds flying in the sky and sparkling treasures scattered on the ground. It was like heaven on earth. The merry crowd saw her and called out to her. The only way to get there was through the ladder. She was about to jump down without hesitation, but someone hugged her. In the darkness, the voice said, "Come back tomorrow." At this moment, while Han Fei was stunned, another figure suddenly descended from the sky. Han Fei hooked the man, tied him up, and pulled him up. The skinny man, who had been crazily pouncing on the food, was now motionless and had a brilliant smile on his face. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. These people can still be saved. Let's try. Plop. This was a voice coming from somewhere else in the fog. They couldn't see him, so they couldn't save him. Those people jumped into the sea, which meant that there was no chance of saving them. Zhang Xuanyu was surprised. Why are so many people jumping into the sea? Logically speaking, other than the uncontrollable ones, the rest of them should have been tied up. Han Fei? Zhang Xuanyu's face changed. Let's go. I'm afraid that something must have happened up there. Hurry up. On the top of the dragon boat. Zhang Xuanyu roared. Xiao Sei, did you hear that? Give me a reply. However, there was no sound on the top of the dragon boat. At this moment, even Han Fei knew that something was wrong up there. Zhang Xuanyu said seriously, "The top of the dragon boat is not so large. Let's go around at full speed. There are so many starving people. It's impossible for them not to make any noise." Han Fei nodded slightly, So the 5 of them quickly ran wildly in the fog. If these people were not crazy or hungry to the extreme, it would be fine. But at this moment, even Xiao Sei's subordinates were extremely hungry, not to mention so many people who were almost unconscious. After running for about 10,000 meters, the 5 of them heard a roar. Sun Ruo said, "On the 4th floor." When Han Fei and the others entered the cabin on the 4th floor, they found a large number of bones on the ground, and all of them were people who had just died. Han Fei suddenly said, "Don't move. I smell stir-fried yellow-blooded sea cucumber." Zhang Xuanyu asked, "I just wanted to say, did you give them food?" Zhang Xuanyu took a breath. "Oh no, they didn't eat anything before." Then, under the strict rules, they were able to live in peace. Now that you have given them food, even if Xiao Sei can hold back his desire, others may not be able to. Wang Baiwan took a breath. Among Xiao Sei's group, many of them used to be peak-level dangling fishers, right? Hearing Wang Baiwan's words, everyone immediately moved forward quickly. However, Han Fei and the others made a lot of noise. When they were about 2,000 meters away, they felt that someone was running. Han Fei shouted, "Where are you going?" When they passed by the place where the person had eaten just now, they found a large group of people lying on the ground, most of them dead, and Xiao Sei was tied to a pillar. Han Fei said, "I'll chase them. You stay and meet on the top of the boat." Han Fei was like a beast running through a wall. Although there were layers of fog in front of him, he smelled like vegetables. How could he escape from him? The broken hull was smashed by Han Fei. In less than 10 minutes, Han Fei had already stood in front of the 5 people. Han Fei grinned. "I thought you would run separately, but you are very smart. Your strength has not been fully restored. Running separately will only reduce your chances of survival." Is the yellow-blooded sea cucumber delicious? Among the 5 people, 4 men and 1 woman, all looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A piece of flesh was even bitten off by something on the face of the leading man. He looked at Han Fei and his eyes flickered. "Just want to live." Han Fei sneered. "Just want to live? You killed so many people? Did Xiao Sei not give you food, or do you think you can get out of the abyssal chasm with these yellow-blooded sea cucumbers?" Next to the man, a soul warrior who seemed to have not fully recovered roared and slapped at Han Fei with a rod in his hand. His strength had been restored to the level of an advanced dangling fisher. It was a pity that they met Han Fei. Han Fei clenched his fist and punched the rod. The man directly smashed a layer of wood and rolled 7 or 8 meters on the ground before he stopped. Han Fei grinned. "If you are all in your peak state, maybe there will be a chance. I really may not be able to catch you. But do you still have 50% of your combat power? Brother, let us go." The eyes of the leading man stared straight at Han Fei, but he was ready to fight. The other 4 were the same. They seemed to be ready to fight to the death. Han Fei smiled slightly. "It's not up to me whether I let you go or not." With that, the 4 people on the opposite side moved, and a huge amount of seaweed grew under Han Fei's feet. The leading man held a short spear in his hand and stabbed at Han Fei with all his strength. Another person held a sledgehammer in his hand and smashed down violently. Another person had already rushed to Han Fei's side and stabbed at Han Fei's armpit with a knife. Clang, golden fist shadows, like brilliant lights in the darkness. For punches, and all 4 people vomited blood and were sent flying. How is this possible? The leading man was dumbfounded. Isn't this an advanced dangling fisher? Why is he so strong? For punches easily knocked them down. Moreover, that spear of his had clearly hit him. Why couldn't he break his body? How strong was this person's physique? Han Fei dragged these 5 people back. 5 people were tied to a single fishing rod. All of them were like deflated balloons. They were silent, as if they had accepted their fate. On the top of the boat, Xiao Sei was sitting cross-legged to recover. Many people were so hungry that they only had bones left, cowering in the mist, not daring to approach. When Han Fei came back, Xiao Sei suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the 5 people. Bastards! Chapter 495. After dragging the 5 people back, Han Fei learned the reason for their betrayal from Xiao Sei. Han Fei had given Xiao Sei a pot of yellow-blooded sea cucumber before. Xiao Sei's original idea was to share it equally for everyone and then maintain it for a few days to reduce the negative impact of the blue fish. But there were many people here who hadn't lost their minds, more than 500 people. Even if they each took a bite, they wouldn't be able to survive for 3 days. Therefore, some people argued, saying that they should let some people eat first, go out after recovering, and then collect a lot of food to save everyone. However, they had been here for so long and had seen too many changes in people's minds. Did they really believe that those who went out would come back? However, not to mention whether or not he could get out, even if he could, what was the probability of him coming back after escaping? And these people attacked Xiao Sei at that time, snatched his sea-swallowing seashell, and intended to escape. However, they didn't expect that Han Fei would come back so soon. They even thought that Han Fei wouldn't come back. After all, some of them had gone deep into the bottom floor and met the ghost baby salamanders. They knew that there were not only blue mutants but also such terrifying creatures below the cabin. Among the people who were caught by Han Fei, the leader sneered. How long can a yellow-blooded sea cucumber last? Xiao Sei, you know I made the right choice. Xiao Sei frowned. You shouldn't have killed so many people. They stopped me. The leader roared crazily, they're going crazy. They'll do anything just to have a bite to eat. You and I are different. We know how to make use of this unexpected energy. After hearing the conversation between the two, Han Fei felt that his head was about to explode. It seemed that, in a sense, both sides had their own reasons. As an outsider, it seemed that he had done something bad with good intentions. Those who were almost lost were about to rush up at this moment, but were forcibly stopped by Xiao Sei, banish. Since the 5 people were caught by Han Fei, they had lost hope. But the leader laughed and scolded, Xiao Sei, at least I'm open and above board. And you, hypocrite? How did you survive until now? Don't you know? After that, the man looked at Han Fei and the others. You were just deceived by him. He is a liar, a liar. Xiao Sei's face darkened. Get lost. Take care of yourselves. Xiao Sei didn't kill these people. Instead, he threw them into the thick fog and let them fend for themselves. However, Han Fei frowned. For some reason, he felt a little strange. He knew very little about Xiao Sei, so he couldn't tell right from wrong. He couldn't possibly reason with a bunch of lunatics. They only had food in their eyes. Xiao Sei, on the other hand, gave Han Fei the feeling that he was too calm and steady. He didn't doubt that Xiao Sei was a good person, but how should he draw the line? He wasn't sure. It's like having 2 train tracks with children on them. One path had 1 child, and one path had 3 children. Now that the train is coming, do you want 1 child to die or a few children to die? In fact, the choice itself was not good or bad. Han Fei took 2 steps back into the mist and then snapped his fingers, throwing a sea-swallowing seashell at the 5 people who were leaving. Han Fei was thinking, no matter whether these 5 people could escape or not, it was always right to leave them a way out. If Xiao Sei was a good person, then even if these 5 people got out in the future, they couldn't do anything to him. If Xiao Sei was a hypocrite, then these 5 people would be an obstacle for him. Among the people present, no one except Zhang Xuanyu noticed Han Fei's move. Others wouldn't care whether Han Fei took 2 steps forward or 2 steps back. Only Zhang Xuanyu knew Han Fei. Therefore, he would pay attention to this kind of trivial behavior. Zhang Xuanyu asked via voice transmission, what did you give them? Han Fei replied, a yellow-blood sea cucumber. If they are lucky enough, they may be able to get out alive. Zhang Xuanyu guessed immediately, do you think there is something wrong with Xiao Sei? Han Fei responded indifferently, I'm not sure. Xiao Sei has been on this dragon boat for several months, right? If he can survive until now and keep helping these people, why doesn't he go out? Zhang Xuanyu was taken aback for a moment, and then responded expressionlessly, got it. I'll pay attention to him. After the communication, Han Fei smiled and said, Xiao Sei, can you count the number of people who haven't lost their minds? Xiao Sei let out a long sigh, yes. Wait a minute. Xiao Sei shouted to those people, "Bring those who are still tied up here." "Everyone, gather." After shouting, Xiao Sei said with a bitter face, "I have no choice. No one can predict what will happen after eating the blue fish in a short period of time. Today, after the 5 of them robbed me of my sea-swallowing seashell, it also caused chaos. Many people broke free from the ropes and jumped into the sea." Han Fei frowned slightly. "Did anyone jump down and get rescued?" Xiao Sei shook his head. "No, they jumped into the sea too quickly. Unless someone is watching them in person, once they can't be seen in this fog, there is no chance to find them again." There was still a man tied to Han Fei's fishing rod. He walked over, grabbed a handful of crisps, and stuffed them into the man's hands. Smelling the food, the man suddenly woke up. Then he crazily stuffed the crisps into his mouth, stuffing nearly 20 pieces. Energy overflowed from the man's body, and then his flesh and blood began to recover, and there was a look of struggle in his eyes. This man was much less crazy than the woman Han Fei met when he first boarded the ship. So, soon, the struggle in his eyes became clear. Han Fei asked, "Can you speak?" The man opened his mouth several times and then slowly said, "Yes, I can." Delighted, Han Fei asked, "What did you see when you jumped into the sea? Why did you jump?" The man was a little creeped out and seemed to be lost in memories. In everyone's nervous expectation, after 100 minutes, the man said, "It seemed that someone was calling me. I saw a coral sea. There were colorful corals, colorful sea urchins, seaweed floating along the warm currents, fish swimming in groups, prawns and crabs hunting for food, and snails crawling." The picture described by this man was almost a dreamy ocean. But on second thought, wasn't the place he described similar to the 1,000 miles of coral reefs? Regardless of danger, the 1,000 miles of coral reefs could definitely be called a fairyland in terms of beauty. However, in a place like the abyssal chasm, this beauty was infinitely magnified. Han Fei knew that the reason why this man wanted to go to this place was probably because he wanted to eat fish. Sun Ruoruo stuck out her tongue. "It's so weird." Gulp. Wang Baiwan and Lu Fenfang looked at each other. "Fortunately, Brother Yu's food kept us alive. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have jumped into the sea long ago." At this moment, those who were still sane had come. At this moment, they all appeared in front of Han Fei in groups. Some people were still in the mist and had to be approached to see them. "Help me." Han Fei was about to ask something, when his ears suddenly twitched, and the blood-drinking knife on his waist instantly shot out and slashed behind him. Han Fei's face became ugly. This knife didn't cut anything, but he did hear it. Someone was speaking in his ear, asking him for help. The voice was very crisp and immature, not like an adult calling for help. Everyone looked at Han Fei in astonishment. Zhang Xuanyu hurriedly came over and asked, "Fei, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly attack?" Han Fei frowned. "Did you hear the cry for help?" This was the second time Han Fei had asked this question. Zhang Xuanyu immediately took it seriously. "No, did you really hear it?" As he spoke, Zhang Xuanyu looked at Xiao Sei. He had been here for a long time. Maybe he could know something. Xiao Sei was also stunned by Han Fei's sudden attack. At this time he asked, "Cry for help? Have you heard of it?" But Xiao Sei didn't know what to say. These people wouldn't be willing to talk unless they were eating, because talking also required energy. Besides, they had been roaring for a long time, so they had already become numb. Hearing Xiao Sei's question, they all shook their heads. Han Fei didn't care but asked, "How many people are there in total?" Xiao Sei sighed. "A lot of people died just now. Now there are only 453 people who are fully conscious." Without further ado, Han Fei threw out 10 yellow-blooded sea cucumbers and said, "Recover first." Hiss. For a moment, those people were about to riot, but Xiao Sei hurriedly shouted, don't panic, one by one." Han Fei frowned slightly and then suddenly smiled. "Let me do it. I'll be faster." Han Fei felt that Xiao Sei's action was a bit of a waste of time, so he simply took out the blood-drinking knife. Hundreds of knife lights poured out and cut the 10 yellow-blooded sea cucumbers into nearly 500 pieces. Han Fei said lightly, "Divide them." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.